and it's streaming. Yeah.
Yeah, pull up your
What do you need me for?
YouTube maybe? I don't know.
TAFE Talks YouTube. Is it private though?
Huh?
TAFE
Should be.
Talks YouTube. And we can't make any sounds, can we? Because it's I don't know where it is.
Yeah, don't worry about it. Just trust.
Yeah.
Good work, lad. We got there.
I improv there. So. I'm just going to get myself some water so that way.
Yeah.
No, the 3 and 6 doesn't work. What I'm doing currently is not working.
Did you end up getting a photo of the run sheet? Yeah.
Oh, okay. Okay, that's good.
I think I got emails.
That's good. No, that works.
Sweet.
What you're saying.
Hello everyone, good morning and welcome to TAFE Talks 2025. Let's better you. Before we kick off, I would love to welcome Kaylee Khan from our Enhanced Aboriginal Engagement Team with the Cool Arts Centre for the acknowledgement of country.
Good morning everyone, I'm not sure if you all can hear me, but my name is Kaylee. I'm a very, very proud Malaysian woman, but I've been living here on that country for most of my life. I'd just like to, on behalf of myself and North Metro TAFE, acknowledge the traditional custodians of the land that we're on, the Noongar people, and all the TAFE campuses that we operate on here. I'd also like to pay respects to all of the Noongar people that are here, past, present, and emerging leaders. I'm handing back over to Daniel.
I do want to point out as well that Michaela this morning requested a smoke machine, and Beyonce we to bring her on. It's too late a request, I'm so sorry. So I'd now like to welcome Mark opening remarks.
I also requested Beyonce this morning. Good morning, everyone. My name is Mark Madden. I'm the Portfolio Director for Resources and Logistics here at North Metro TAFE. It's fantastic to see so many of you here today. We're here to talk about opportunity, your opportunity. Immerse yourself and improve yourself. This year is about improvement. Across the globe, people are asking, how can I sleep better? How can I think clearer? Live happier? And sometimes the answers aren't easy to find. Here at TAFE, our purpose is simple, yet powerful, to improve the future by improving our students. TAFE Talks is more than just an event. It's an opportunity to equip our emerging workforce with the skills, mindset, and confidence to become capable, well-rounded, healthy individuals who can achieve their dreams. A little bit about TAFE. North Metro TAFE is more than a training provider. We're WA's largest. We have 9 campuses from across all the Perth's northern suburbs, from Joondalup to Midland, Leaderville to Clarkson. Each campus is equipped with cutting-edge technology, industry standard facilities, so your learning experience mirrors the real workplace. From our state-of-the-art electric vehicle training centre at Joondalup, to our smart home automation facility in Balga campus, and our simulated health campus at Clarkey. We ensure you gain those hands-on skills in environments that reflect the future of the work. We deliver over 350 nationally recognised courses across more than 70 industry areas, from apprenticeships, traineeships, advanced diplomas, and micro-credentials. Whether you're starting out, changing careers, or upskilling for the future, there's a pathway here at TAFE for you. Every year, more than 34,000 students attend North Metropolitan TAFE, including over 1,300 international students. It provides a diverse cohort of students from all different walks of life. It's a dynamic learning community. So the talks today, the TAFE Talks, this year you'll hear from 8 professional speakers across 2 engaging morning sessions, each focused on topics that help you better yourself and your lifestyle. Themes for today. This year's TAFE Talks will focus on personal growth with sessions designed to help you boost your well-being, strategies for better sleep, mental clarity and resilience, sharpen your thinking, tools for problem solving, creativity and decision making, elevate your lifestyle, practical tips for balance, productivity and happiness, future-proof your career, insights into adaptability, lifelong learning and leadership. Immerse yourself, improve yourself, and take the next step forward, becoming the best version of you. Thank you, and welcome to TAFE Talks.
Thanks for that, Mark. So, this year's theme is Let's Better You, focusing on holistic improvement and personal growth. The Future 5 team's goals are to help you make meaningful actions towards bettering yourself and learning new skills, breaking old habits and building healthier ones. But first, some quick housekeeping. Please switch your phones to silent. Bathrooms are located to the right of the security desk, just outside the exit here. And in the case of an emergency or fire, please head across to Building 1, across the crosswalk and outside of that building. Feel free to scan the QR codes that you'll see at the entrance on the screen at the moment and at the registration desk for all of our details and programming for the day. And we do have Intercut located just outside the lecture theatre for refreshing power teas and delicious cups of acai to refuel you and power you up for the Pilates session this afternoon, which will all be at, yes? Absolutely. Not too late to register that one with Lucy and Naylor. Now, a bit of appreciation for our volunteers at the registration desk at the front and our AV crew at the back, some of our fantastic media students. We appreciate you. Now, on to our first presenter. So Simon Yan is the Mental Health and Wellbeing Consultant at North Metropolitan TAFE. His role focuses on the implementation, coordination and promotion of North Metropolitan TAFE's wellbeing framework. framework and the provision of mental health and wellbeing training to staff, supporting staff to be effective in their roles with students with mental health conditions. Simon has over 20 years of experience working in community-based services in WA, supporting people in vulnerable communities and at risk of mental health crises. Please welcome Dr. Simon Yan, PhD, Men Through Crime.
Before we can talk, we cry. It's how we survive. So why don't we tell boys to stop crying? To harden up? To grow a pair? Fuck that. If you feel down, speak up. Because silence can kill. Takes guts to show pain. Takes a man to feel. It takes balls to cry.
I don't know whether you remember the first day you were born. It'd be a miracle if you do. But you hear the first sounds of your own crying. And that's when you first shed your tears for the first time as a baby. I was born in 1971 into a very conservative Chinese family. And as all babies do, we were born into the world. We were born with a set of values. Over here, I have a briefcase that belonged to my dad. And in the briefcase, there are 3 items that I'd like to show you. It's a Chinese character that says, good fortune. I've got a cross here that represents my faith. And last but not least, a feather boa with the rainbow colors. It's kind of not about the moment of my life, I'm sorry. And I'll just leave that there as we have the conversation. So, values. I always talk about values. It's such an important thing for us to consider as we're growing up. What are our values? What are we born into? What is important for us as we experience life day by day? This is my extended family. My dad is the eldest of 11 children. He's right up there. And that's my mom there. And that's my grandmother and grandfather. Granddad passed away when he was pretty young, in his 60s. So it was very much a matriarchal family structure. Interestingly, when we talk about matriarchal structure, we'll think that, okay, grandma's going to tell us exactly what to do, when to do what, and to control the situation. She was establishing the control in the family. She was establishing the expectations of the family. And the expectations was overwhelming because my dad, being the eldest son, was expected to bear an heir to the family, to carry on the family tradition. My mom gave birth to my eldest sister, Catherine, my second sister, Teresa, and my third sister, Claire. No son. Where was I? We'll get to that. She's also got four other sons, all of whom passed during the Second World War. The other three are my uncles, my eighth uncle, my fourth uncle, my eighth uncle, and my 10th uncle. Uncle Peter, Uncle John, Uncle Francis. I want you to remember Uncle Francis just for now, yeah? Out of all the four uncles, two of them turned out gay. So that almost chopped off a vital root in the family tree when we talk about continuing family tradition and family name. I was baptized as Catholic at a very young age, so my faith was a very big part in my life growing up. And that defined a big part of who I am as a person. The value system around being a Catholic was a driving factor for how to behave, what to expect, and the laws of the Bible, so to speak. This is me growing up. You can see that I was dressed quite similar to my dad. My dad really loved me a lot. I believe that to this very day. But there were a lot of challenges. There were a lot of expectations from me as his only son. I was born 10 years later after my third sister. My mom tried, my parents tried, actually, not just my mom. My parents tried over and over and over again. And my grandmother was really giving my mom a really difficult time for not being the worthy daughter-in-law. So the stress in the family was starting to build at that time until I was born. And then, of course, I became the protected child. Dad always said to me, you're a boy, in a family of girls. You have to act like a boy. You have to behave like a boy. Stop crying. I'm going to teach you what you need to know in life. Here are a series of photos that was taken of me at a very young age. One was dressing up as a soldier, because having a gun is a very boy thing to do, right? It's about violence, it's about defense, it's about courage. And it's quite frightening when you think about what the implications might be. I was also made very well aware that academic achievement was very important. All right, to make sure you do well in school, you climb to the very, very, very top. You don't just stop at high school or you call O levels in Singapore, start with college. You continue on to university and you keep studying, you keep going, because it is about maintaining the family name and the honor. As the only child of the eldest child of the Yam clan. I was also encouraged to make sure I am handy with my hands, with tools. It's very bloaty thing, isn't it? I have no interest in cars whatsoever. But bear in mind, I'll show you where I got to with this. But yeah, that was what was expected of me. What do you know? What do I know? I still don't know how to change the car tire, to be honest. I'm all RAC, but here we go. So, whilst I was still growing up, Dad made sure that I was very in touch with my culture, my heritage. Chinese New Year was a very important time for us when the entire clan would come over, because my dad was the eldest, and Dad would teach me all the customs and traditions that I have to understand and practice, the meanings behind it. For me, these three are my identities that I grew up with. My Asian culture, my Chinese culture, was the easiest, I thought, for me to embrace, because it was just there. The cultural heritage was already there. So I just got to learn along the way and figure out what they are and practice them. And to this day, I still do. These two, not so much. Being a Catholic, being a person of faith, I went to church every single Sunday, but I still was trying to understand what God meant. What does that mean? Something I can't see, I can't feel. It took me years to build my faith. I'll get to that soon. So am I man enough? That was the question I asked myself when I was growing up. What does it mean to be a man? Why is Dad teaching me all these things? I remember he used to call me into the storeroom where he had his tools tools set up. And he'd be making stuff out of woodwork, out of metalwork, and I'll be standing there in this musty little back storeroom wondering what I'm doing there, all right? And he would say, pass me a spanner, and I'll be looking like, what the hell is a spanner? And he would give me that death stare as if, like, if you don't give me that spanner, I'm gonna grab it and smack you in the face with it. So, you know, that was my learning curve. And that was the first time I started experiencing fear, just because I was a boy, and that's what I was expected to learn. When I was 12 and I finished primary school, this is my primary school teacher, Mrs. Lee. Beautiful, lovely lady whom I still keep in touch with. And I remember one of the advice that she gave me on this very day when we came our results from primary school. She said to me, Simon, I've got some advice for you. Yes, Mrs. Lee. You really have to be very careful of your mannerisms. Because I tend to be a little bit girly, would you say. I don't know whether it's because I happen to be gay, I happen to have a kind of behavior, I was still growing up, I was 12, I was just being me. I was very close to my 3 elder sisters, so I might have some influence in that regard. But I took her advice to heart because she knew I was going to an all-boys school for the next 4 years and I would get seriously bullied there. So that caused me to get really anxious and worried and resentful, and I suddenly saw my teenage years ahead of me was going to be a really tough ride, and it was. My dad was a scoutmaster, very good with ropes, very good with tools, and when I joined St. Andrews Secondary School, which is here by year 7, he said, you have to join the Scouts. You have to. There's no doubt about it. I hated it from the depths of my heart. Yeah, I thought it was a little bit cute, but you know, it just didn't fit me at all. My skinny legs, you know, I just didn't fit the part. So I was in the Scouts for about 8 months, and I remembered on a Saturday, sometime in September, he was taking me to school, and I said, Dad, I don't want to do this anymore. He dropped me off, didn't say anything, went back home. I caught a bus back home. No word was said about it. The following week, I confided in the Scoutmaster, Mr. Ong, and I said, I really don't want to be in this anymore, and I actually started crying in front of him. That was the first time I actually shed a tear, well, actually, in front of somebody else at the age of 13. Because I was so terrified of being in the Scouts. I was so heavily burdened by the expectations of my dad to meet his level of expertise as a Scoutmaster. Then Mr. Ong decided to call my dad and called him in for a meeting. I'll never forget that day when I went in with my dad to the office. And I was standing at the back of the hall, Mr. Ong and Dad were standing by the balcony, and we were having this intense conversation. And Mr. Ong obviously was telling him things along the lines of, you really shouldn't force your son to be a Scoutmaster, let him follow his dreams, let him follow what his passion is. Dad came to me, there was no eye contact, my heart was beating so fast, as it is right now. Got into the car, nothing was ever said, and I left the Scouts. I then turned to theatre. It was my passion. Theatre has always been my passion. So with the encouragement of my mum and my 3 sisters, I joined this company called Act 3 in Singapore, and we got involved in a lot of theatre productions across Singapore for the next couple of years. And that really was an amazing outlet for me because I could express myself, I could be myself. Maybe I was starting to tap into my gay side of me where I enjoy being in the limelight and performing and singing and all that kind of stuff. But there was still a lot of confusion because I didn't understand what that all meant. I just wanted to be happy. I was a teenager. I was being bullied in the all-boys school, so I wanted a space outside to take care of myself. It was the first sign that I started to make an effort to take care of myself as a teenage boy. Nothing else was being said. The church wasn't helping me at all. Although, as I moved forward, that was also a space I decided to tap into for some sense of salvation and protection. Because this was really weighing me down. Yeah. So, as I said, tradition was still cool. This is my dad's 60th birthday celebration. I did a coordinated Chinese dance. That's why I was wearing that costume. I love wearing costumes. It was almost like masking behind the truth. that shows, how much I was still engaged in what I love to do, whilst respecting my cultural heritage and my parents. So, left or right came the turning point in my life, because I was starting to discover that I was having feelings for people of the same sex, especially in an all-boys school. I was developing my first crush. I didn't know whether it was right or wrong. I felt very confused. I had no one to talk to. I couldn't turn to the family. I couldn't turn to the church. So I just turned inward. And this is back in the 80s, don't forget, we had no social media, we had no TikTok videos, we had encyclopedias, and I'm not looking for an encyclopedia under the word gay to see what the definition was. Right, the Britannica doesn't say that. So I had to figure out myself what it was all about. This was me when I was 16 in an all-boys school. There was a mate in there that I had a crush on for a whole year. It was really tough. I got teased, I got bullied, I got threatened in the toilet a few times to be bashed up. So I never told my parents about this. I tried my best to survive. I focused on my studies because Dad, look at that picture with me to the, what do you know? I focused on studies because I thought if I'm going to excel in my studies, everything is going to be fine. The Lord is going to take care of me. I'll be safe. I had a girlfriend, Sharon, bless her. She's married with 3 kids now. We dated for about a year, right? And I thought, peer pressure, why not? Because all the boys in the class had girlfriends, and so I met Sharon through church, interestingly. From the choir that we were in. I was in the church choir for 7 years, and that was my way of trying to connect with this other identity of mine. You can see I was constantly juggling between these 3 identities to have some sense of my life was having this internal turmoil. So I thought, all right, I'm going to rely a little bit on my faith here and do the right thing, because if I stuff up in any of those other areas, at least I've got the church by me, and Dad is not going to persecute me because we're talking about God. So I hid within that space. I was in the choir for 7 years. I was part of a couple of ministry groups, still in a theatrical space. I was playing the role of St. Francis of Assisi on a stage musical there. And then I actually joined a seminary for 3 months, St. Francis Xavier Seminary. This is the 3 months before I was enlisted to national service in Singapore, which we had to serve for 2.5 years, which again raised my anxiety and fear because I was going to be involved, I was going to be in a male-dominated environment where hyper-masculinity exists for 2.5 years, against back in the 80s, early 90s. I thought I would find me there. And I thought, well, when I finish the army, I'm going to join the seminary, I'm going to become a priest. This is not going to be a problem. Right? And I'll get some respect as far as my heritage is concerned. Because we never had a priest in the family. So then I was national service for 2.5 years. I thought I'll give it a gun. Came true, yeah. Worst time of my life in there. 6 months in infantry. The stress was phenomenal. But you know what? It was in there that I built the amazing sense of resilience and survival. Skills that you never learn anywhere else, because you're put in situations where you have to just survive regardless of how unfairly treated you were. We were made to do things that were impossible and punished for it. Because basically they were training us to be prisoners of war. What do you do in those scenarios? There's no way of bargaining your way out. So if anything, I was actually quite grateful for that time. But still, I wasn't prepared to be in infantry for 2.5 years. And I found this organization called the Music and Drama Company in the Army, and we go around performing for Army troops 3 or 4 times a week. There we were. And that's me up there, looking quite glamorous. Too much eyeshadow anyway. So yeah, but I really thrive in this. And you know what interesting is? Half the guys in there identify as being part of the LGBTIQ+ community. And suddenly I felt a whole weight lifted off my shoulders because I could be who I was within the guise of this hyper-masculine environment in Singapore. And my dad didn't know very much about it because I said, oh, I just sing on stage. I didn't tell him I dance, whatever it is, yeah? So my mom was probably a little bit appreciative to watch my costumes, but you know, it was a great opportunity for me to discover myself. So my best friends, Eric, who always loved me a drag queen. So I did his makeup and his costume and everything. I was very much into costume production and stuff like that. So that was a very interesting event that we were involved in. So after I finished my army in 1993, the big question here is, do I fight? Do I flee? How do I find my freedom? Because I'm not free yet. I know that if I remain in Singapore, part of my obligation as the only son of the eldest son of the Yam dynasty, right? The obligation for a son is to live at home with your parents. It is your filial piety and duty to look after your parents. If you do get married, your wife will come and live with you with the parents, or you move out to live with your spouse. Otherwise, if you're not married, you have to live with your parents. Very different here. But that is the norm, that is the expectation. That was the burden, that was the weight I was carrying. And that was what I was trying to escape from. Because I know if I stick with this, I will have to give this up. I only have this to fall back on as well, to back me up. So there was a lot of turmoil going on. I remember the day I said to my dad, I want to go to Australia to study. Why do you go to Australia to study? Because I said my grades weren't good enough for year 12. I can't get into the National University of Singapore over here. So, all right, I'll sponsor you, all right? And he paid, and it was a lot of money for international students to come here, about $100,000 for 3 years. And he paid for me, and he said, make sure you come back with a degree that is worth the family name, settle down, get married, and give me grandchildren. Yeah, right. So I left, arrived in Perth. It was my first accommodation, jewel pubs, next to, interestingly, to St. Mary's Cathedral, so I felt quite close to a very specific faith of mine. And then fast track, I embraced the Aussie life, you know, runs, gardening, looking quite butch, you know, and all that kind of stuff. And interestingly, I was really trying to investigate and unpack what it was to be gay. What does that mean? Who am I? And again, cast your mind back to the 1990s. This is an era where we don't talk about fluid, gender, diverse, terminology. You're either gay or you're not, right? And of course, I identify as now called cisgender, cis male. And that's who I am. But that wasn't enough for me because I still wasn't comfortable in my own skin. So I wanted to push the boundaries. I wanted to explore what it is to be hyper-masculine. And it's quite a common term in the gay scene, where guys are super buff and wear leather and all that really hyper-male masculine identity. Simply because deep inside me, I didn't know what it was still to be a man. Right? And I thought that if I was hyper-masculine, that would allow me the luxury of not having to come to terms with my emotions and to cry. So I met my first partner at the time, John, who was old enough to be my dad. Interesting, if you think about my relationship with my dad, let's not do any psychoanalysis here, please. But John was a really lovely guy, and I was with him for about 3 years. And that's my partying year in the 80s. It was a lovely top, swaying and everything. I had another one that was kind of see-through, but I'm not sure that. And I was a heavy smoker as well. I was into my drinks, or I used to go partying, clubbing, go through quite a few tequilas, quite a few Long Island teas. Oh my God, maybe some Coronas. I'll be smoking a pack or 2 a day. That was me. And during this time, I used to hang out with my best friend Amran, who was a singer. And we used to bounce off each other, what's going on in our lives. Amran was gay as well. He had a partner who was also Australian, who unfortunately passed. But Amram was my best friend at the time, and there's a reason why I raised his name here. I graduated with my honors, studious boy, right? Did pretty well in theatre and drama studies, ironically. Mom said, all right, fine, you can go and do theatre and drama studies, that's fine. Because they want to give you a lawyer or an engineer or a doctor, you know, typical Asian thing. But I'm like, no, I'm going to do theatre and drama studies, but I'll do a bit of communications as well, a double degree. And Mom said, that's fine, you know, you can go and do drama as long as I don't catch you in a dress. It's okay, that's fair enough. I came back to do my PhD a year later after teaching in Singapore because I really wanted to get out of being trapped at home. So I applied for my scholarship and I came back to Australia to do my PhD in theatre and drama studies and psychology. And met my next partner, Ian, whom I was with for 8 years. And during that time, I explored different identities for myself, the hyper-masculinity, the party boy, the crazy things, the hair. You know, 70s party, we had so many wild parties during that time, it was crazy. And I got quite involved with the pride scene here, which I was quite involved in for work-related reasons as well for about like 15, 20 years. Still trying to find myself, trying to figure out what the best fit is for me. I lived a drag. So I did a talk show called Young Child with Madam Young, and I played this parody of my mom. And the joke that I made during the first show was my mom said, you can't do theatre, that's not going to catch you in a dress. And there I was. But it was good fun. But internally, I was still quite confused. I was still searching, who am I? Does a man do this? Do men do this? What sort of man is this? What is it? What's going on with me? A year later, my good mate that I just shared with you, Amber, passed away suddenly at the age of 33 with, through asthma. When I got the news from my sister that night, on the phone, I sat in the bedroom and I bawled my eyes out. That was the first time it really hit me what it was to lose a good mate who really knew who I was, because nobody else did. And for him to be taken so suddenly at that tender age really affected me a lot. So I decided to push myself and drown myself in theatre. I directed quite a few other plays, most by Murdoch University. Did a lot more productions. I think I did about 6 productions under my own theatre company. And it was almost like a way of immersing myself in a world of pretend, where I can excel in what I love to do and not be judged for what I'm not able to fulfill, especially the expectations of my dad. The interesting thing is that all these achievements leading up to my graduation with my PhD, my family never knew the achievements I made. The 7 or 8 theatre productions I've done, the work that I've done at Murdoch University for my research, they didn't know. They just knew that Simon has escaped and run away to Australia to avoid his responsibilities of looking after mum and dad. And was really leading a very, hyper-gay life. That was the judgment that I was feeling. Right. So here I am, the guilty man, which I led. So I graduated in 2002. Imagine for the next 20 odd years, I was leading a life of guilt because I had my family in Singapore, parents were getting older. I did come up to my sisters though, why she didn't. They found some incriminating evidence in the room in my parents' house when I was staying there for a bit, and they were wondering what it was. And they decided to confront me, and I said, yes, I'm gay. They then went to the parish priest in Singapore and said, we don't know what to do, how do we support our brother? And they said, just love him because he's your brother. And they accepted me. So the entire family knows about me, but I've never come out to my parents. And that's the cross that I bear. So, this is another production of me in the Blue Room in 2006, Kiss of the Spider Woman, I was involved in. was working at the AIDS Council, like the WA's Council, for another 12 years. After that, during this period, after graduation, I threw myself working in the not-for-profit sector for the community, people impacted by HIV, people whose sexual health are compromised, their immune system is compromised, and people who who are injecting drug users as well. And it's through these 12 years that I really got to understand what it was like for me as a gay man, what it meant to me to give back to the community. Is this exactly the space I want to be? Or is it the theatre space that I want to be? I couldn't find a job in the theatre when I graduated. And I landed a job at the AIDS Council by chance. And there I was, for the next 12 years. I was also with the Department of Health for another 6 years, also in the same sector. In fact, I was funding the very organization I was working for before. But that was my background in terms of my steps into working with community and around community health and mental health. And that was the first step I got into the space around mental health. When I was the AIDS Council, I met a very dear friend called Steve. Steve was a wonderful man, so loving, so caring, became my best mate for the next 10 years, 12 years. Unfortunately, Steve took his own life 2 years ago, and that totally rocked my world, just how I lost Amran 10 years before. And I started to realize that this is life. You start losing people that you love, that you trust. The only few people you have by your side who really gets you, who truly understands you. But I just pick myself up and carry on. In 2006, I met my current partner, Andrew. We've been together now for 19 years. This is our 20th year. We built our house together in Edinburgh, and we traveled quite a bit. We traveled the world. I was happy to be with him. My family loved him. They got to meet my sisters. You notice that I've got one sister missing here. So that's Catherine, that's Teresa. I'll come to that very soon. And remember Uncle Francis up here? So Uncle Francis is one of the two gay uncles that I have. Uncle Francis is in the UK now. He's been in the UK now for 50 over years, just like me. He escaped and went to the UK in the late 70s. So we went to visit Uncle Francis, who was such a delight. And for me, it was almost as if I'm getting validation from my older generation of the family that I thought I would never get from any of them. It meant a lot to me. And I remember after dinner with him that night, I went to the room and I was with Andrew and I burst out crying. Because it was almost as if I was having a chat with my dad when I introduced Andrew to Uncle Francis. In 2008, my dad released his autobiography. Bless him, he wrote a lot from his pre-war days, surviving World War II and up to this point. There were only 7 chapters in the book, and I helped him with the design book, cinematographic design. He thanked me for it, but he said, hey, I've got one more chapter to add. I said, okay. Because he loves number 8, as we all do, Asians being Asians, number 8. He wants 8 chapters. In the 8th chapter, he wrote, this autobiography, consisting of 8 chapters, was completed in August, which is the 8th month of the year 2008. I celebrated my 80th birthday the same year. At present, I have 3 daughters, 1 son, and 3 sons-in-law. To make up a figure 8 for the second generation, I need to have a daughter-in-law. That's it. It's perfect timing, isn't it? Dad, I hear you. You're getting some feature here. As for the 3rd generation, I have at present 6 grandchildren. Hopefully I will have 2 more from my daughter-in-law to make up the figure 8. So it's not only the pressure of getting married, I need to have 2, not 3, not 1, 2. This is in 2008, I was in my late 30s. the trauma for me when I read this, the disappointment, like after all that I've achieved or tried to achieve, doesn't seem to have made any sense or any impact. I then pushed on. You know what, Dad, I'm going to prove to you I'm a success. Even though I have a PhD, I'm going to own a business now. Oh my God, big mistake. My partner is in hospitality. He said, let's start a business. Let's start a cafe and a lunch bar and do catering. Right, so we started Adam's Brunch Box in Balcada. Did pretty well. Got an award from the City of Stirling as the top 3 new emerging businesses. But what was at the expense of this was my mental health. I ended up having a psychotic breakdown about 2 years into it. It was one afternoon at about 2 o'clock. I was so stressed, I walked out of the shop in my apron, hands were dirty, and I carried on walking down Reed Highway for a good 20 minutes. And I just walked and walked and walked and walked and walked, and then I stopped. I don't know how long I sat there for. Next thing, my colleague Adrian, who was on the left-hand side, drove out, got me to the car, and took me back to the shop. And at that point, I knew something wasn't right. That was 2010. Fast track 4 years, I was living with depression without realizing. I was unemployed for 2 years after we sold the shop. Andrew went straight back to FIFO because there was a guaranteed job there. I was unemployed for 2 years, and that really hit me hard after all the accomplishments that I've had academically. I finally found a job back in the health department in 2012, but that was a little bit too late because my mental health wasn't being addressed. I didn't know I had depression, I just felt sad. In 2014, October, my third sister Claire was diagnosed with stage 4 colon cancer. And the doctor said that she had 6 months to live without treatment. And being a family of faith, we got together, and she is a very faith-based person, decided to rely on God to do the healing. So she didn't have chemotherapy whatsoever. I'm going to take you now to April 2015, almost 6 months later. My partner Andrew, that's him, was on site. Suddenly had immense pain, got taken to hospital, flown down by the flying doctors, and had diverticulitis, and had severe rupture and a septic infection. He was in ICU for 5 days. I remember that night when I rushed to the hospital and I waited outside the hospital room. I never felt more alone because I didn't have any family. Andrew's family was up in Geraldton in Northampton. And I remember when they finally took him out, the doctor came up to me and said, "It is a case of wait and see." I'll never forget the drive home at 3 o'clock in the morning, back to Elmbrook on Angara Road. How many of you know Angara Road? At that time, it was totally dark. And I was on the phone to Andrew's sister Janine, and she said, "What's going on? Tell me." I couldn't. I just started crying. Because the thought of losing your life partner there's no words to describe. So for the next 3 weeks in April, my second sister Teresa flew over, despite what's happening with Claire, my third sister. Teresa came over to keep me company and to support me and Andrew for a week. After that, she went back because Claire's situation was deteriorating. And Andrew finally got discharged in late April. But unfortunately, the very next day, my sister passed. I was lucky enough to get back home and to see her and to say goodbye to her. But that was a real a starting point for a trigger effect of my trigger for my depression, anxiety, and early signs of suicidal ideation. Because I didn't know how to carry on losing a sibling. I continued living with depression, undiagnosed, for another couple of years, until someone said to me, "I think you need to go and see a psychologist." And I said, okay, I'll give it a go. I'm a very active Facebook poster, and I used to do my gratitude post every day, and I'll write what's on my mind, and I'll share it. I do get judged sometimes by people for oversharing, but it is my way of letting things out of my system, and it's a great way to rehab as well for these very reasons. So this is what I wrote in 27 October 2016. So what am I thankful for today? I had a brutal second session for my psych. Tears just flowed, I had to let them out. I'm a very eloquent storyteller. You can tell I'm passionate about my arts. I'm just narrating what I'm seeing and feeling. Those painful moments just get played out and filled in my mind. Grief and fear are such insidious emotions of the mind and heart. A year later, almost a year later, July, I still carry on living with depression and anxiety. 14th of July, I suddenly understood this afternoon why people with depression feel the world would be a better place without them. The stress, the burden, the fear, even avoidance from those around are not worth the energy. I shared within this book that I read by Tim Graven called Boys Don't Cry. If you can get hold of this book, please buy it and read it. It's an amazing book. But I say shit because I don't know how best to deal with it. So day in, day out, I do a bot force and all that jazz, saying to my own reflection in the mirror after I got dressed, and here I say, showtime. And I step out. But all the while, struggling with who I am deep inside. Some days are a nightmare and I end up having a cry in the bathroom. And there are days when Simon wants to come forward and stay, but it just wasn't safe. So I'm staying inside. So that was my struggle for quite a few years, especially in that year. Almost a week later, 26, what am I thankful for today? My psych told me a couple of sessions ago that the biggest roadblock in my life is Simon, my expectations, my assumptions, my fears, and my judgment. I am my own worst enemy, and I've got a lot to learn. I'm just glad I ended this day with some light in the tunnel to give myself the courage to confront some of my fears and assumptions. So you can see there's a bit of a roller coaster ride going there. I feel depressed. No, I can get through this. No, it's not working. Come on, you can do this. You know, it's some of the signs and symptoms you pick up. At the time, it's very hard to pick up for myself. If I had someone close to me, they may have picked up some of the signs, but I didn't have anyone close enough to actually reach out. Then came the 2nd of October, 2017. This is a bear that was given to me by Andrew, and it gives me a lot of comfort. It's almost a place of hope for me. And I wrote, Howard is on his way. Howard's the name of that man. I think I was quite ready to give up. 27th of October, the day before the day. So what am I thankful for today? Getting the chance to pour all this shit out of my side today. It's been 4 weeks and I've been having these waves of internal rage that is quietly suppressed by an overwhelming sense of nonchalant. It's almost like emotional suicide. I must say I've become an expert at this. I don't even remember how to get angry naturally. The rage just surfaces in the most unexpected moments with the smallest trigger. But I reserve them until I get my car to drown them out with my music. Then they dissipate until nightfall. I feel at a lost cause, actually. And that was the picture I posted with. Ernest was my classmate back in Singapore. He and Rowena, also my classmate in Singapore, were the only two who acknowledged this post. I was screaming for help. 28th of October, 10 p.m. I'm on my medication, laid on the side in the living room. I was going to have an overdose. I was nervous. I think my faith was telling me not to do it. So in order to override this, I decided I'd drink or two. I ended up having like 2 or 3 bottles of wine. And I almost passed out. But I thought someone was in the room with me. I couldn't remember who, but I actually passed out. I didn't go, it didn't happen. But that was that day, and that day became the turning point. The next day, I woke up and I wrote this post. I'm alive today not because I woke up, but because I didn't stop breathing when I went to sleep. 2010, the night before, my late sis came and sat with me for a while last night. She didn't say anything, but I know why she was there. To tell me my time is not up yet. She knew. I asked her to take me with her, but she just held my hand and smiled. And that was the presence. It came back to me. I remembered my sister Claire, coming into the room and sitting with me. She was looking out for me. This is a day that shouldn't be here, but it is for a reason. I'm still very tired, but I'll let God open the universe for me today and show me what my purpose is from here on. Otherwise, everything else that serves no purpose can just fuck off. So that was my tipping point. And that's followed by tears of forgiveness. My dad passed on the 13th of March 2019. I managed to go back to Singapore to spend some time with him, to look after him. I still didn't come up to him, but I had to hold on to the comfort that deep down he knows. I still haven't come up to my mom, who's living with dementia now, but again, I hope deep down she knows. What's stopping Simon from telling him is fear. Is this. And I gladly own up to that fear. As a 54-year-old man, it still brings me to tears sometimes with the missed opportunity to come up to my dad and now potentially to my mom. But that's something I have to live with. When my dad died, I found that he wrote stacks of Chinese poetry and calligraphy. It was amazing. And one of the things about family values, he listed all the family members' names there, including my name, and talked about how important it is to love each other, and to be there for each other, and to care for each other. And that's the poem that I've got on my arm now. I get asked this all the time. So Dad is always part of me, and it's a way for me to accept that forgiveness that I have for him, and to understand where he's coming from. Because if you remember that picture of my grandmother and all that, he was born into a system, into a culture, into an institution that was his expectations for his parents, and that's all he knew to pass it on to me. And I can't hold him accountable or guilty for that. So since then, moving forward, what has Simon done? Simon has started his own little side gig, Rose Global, looking after men, being a men's counselor, male counselor, and become a mental first aid instructor, which is what I do here at TAFE as well. Because I want to take charge and make sure that everyone is supported, have information and skill sets to practice self-care and endeavor to give up in life. That's some of the training I've done at 5-4 organizations. I also, look at the car, this man touching the tire. But I own it, I have a Ranger, so I quite enjoy. I don't have it anymore now, I had it for about 5 years. It was, and the Blue Tree, love the Blue Tree, more training with organizations, working with other networks, like with Australian Men's Health Forum and with Men's Talk. I also do barbershop training barbers so that they're able to provide brief intervention to the guys they cut hair with and say, hey, what's going on, are you alright? And they open up, say, oh, have you thought about calling Lifeline? That is so important. But so many times they don't talk, and that's missed opportunities. So that's one of the things I do on the side as well. And that's the certificate they get. And of course, that's the other slide I did. And here's some metaphysics training here at Metro TAFE with my colleagues here. Headspace, which was just run recently, Mental Health Week. And some of my students will dumbbell I've been wearing this since 2017. It says, when you feel like quitting, think about why you started. So I wear this next to my cross. It's my two identities that I hold close to keep me safe. I enjoy going to the beach now a lot. Used to hate the beach, but I discovered the joy of walking the beach. And I love going outdoors, out bush. And this year, I've been asked to be an ambassador for Movember. It's been 15 years I've been fundraising for Movember, raising awareness for men's prostate and testicular cancer, men's mental health, and suicide prevention. And after 15 years, they've approached me to be a Movember ambassador, which I'm really, really thankful for. So, now that's a picture of my mom. She's 90. She's got really bad dementia, but we just went back recently in October, and she still remembers me, and she remembers Andrew. She calls Andrew my friend. How's your friend? Yes, my friend, yes. So, example, on the 30th of October this year, I proposed to my partner, Andrew, and he said yes. So we're planning a wedding next year. The entire family is going to come over. I don't think my mom can. So that's something I will have to live with because of the journey that I've had, the choice that I've made. Yes, I could have chosen to tell my mom, but the fear was holding me back. You know, and finding myself as a man, as a human being, was what really stopped me. So always remember to embrace your fears, honor your scars. The scars are there for a reason to tell a story. Honor them. Don't hide them. Release your tears and cry. And it doesn't matter whether you are male, female, whatever identity, whatever. We are all human beings. We all have emotions. Cry, because it is a great way to release how you're genuinely feeling, open up doors for communication and conversation. So once upon a time, I stood on the shoulders of my dad. Now, I hope to have the shoulders that I can hold, I can support other men who are struggling and who have lost their voice to suicide. I'm Simon Yang, and this is my story. That's the QR code. Come and share with me. Thank you very much.
Do we still have the back of the head?
Oh, it's faded already.
It's faded already. Get it in the spotlight, Simon.
No, I had it.
He had the Movember logo. He's head there, amazing. Once again, Dr. Simon Yang, everybody. Men do cry. I'll admit, this morning I wanted to cry. Truly, riddled with anxiety, because this is my first time MC. So you'll forgive me for the fact that I didn't introduce myself. I'm Daniel Powell, I'm the manager of the Student Centre. I would also love to thank our fantastic Auslan students. Okay, so between Auslan, our student media and event students, is a fantastic example of what we can achieve together here at North Metropolitan TAFE. So we've got exactly 7 minutes before our next presenter. Now they're nearly a saver. Okay, so we've got 7 minutes to go. Feel free to step outside and grab a cup of our tea slot. That's all right here. We'll get it open in a sec. Step outside for a cup of our tea or a acai bowl. We will also request, if you have not registered for this next event, do make sure you register. Very important for us to get attendance and feedback. This will be used for our event students' assessments later on, okay? So do make sure you register for this event. If you snuck in for Simon's event, having not registered, we do request that you also retroactively register for that event as well, okay? We'll be back in 6 minutes, crew. Thanks so much.
Just wanted to go back for the break. I'm gonna just grab my back.
It's all good.
It's all good?
Yeah, it's just my phone.
Oh.
I'm surprised they didn't have any wireless or something set up.
I think I do, you just didn't need it.
Oh, I mean, like, with phone button getting it.
Oh.
I think that's all it is. Thank you, Simon. Yeah, sorry.
Let me have a look.
Struggling with the cough drink. Struggling with
Should go second way.
Oh, half the room wasn't here. Half the room wasn't here when we first picked up anyway, so it worked out first. We need a,
I didn't know she was a hat. Wow.
Went out there and
Alright, coming up to
that's all right. We'll spread it for the next one.
How's it going?
Yeah, actually, that's real. I'm just not sure. I'm pretty sure I signed up.
Waiting for that.
Yes, we're ready to go.
Excellent. Hello again, everybody. Getting to settle in. Excellent. So I'm excited to introduce our next presenter. So Nadia is a registered counsellor recognised for her compassionate, evidence-based work with couples, individuals and organisations navigating relationship challenges. She's known for a warm, safe and insightful approach to help clients explore emotions, understand relational patterns and foster meaningful change. Her practice is client-centred, trauma-informed and grounded in psychodynamic, interpersonal and systemic models. Nadia is especially recognised for her ability to help couples and peers break negative cycles, build emotional connection, and improve communication through structured, research-based methods. So please welcome Nadia Ilyaseva, presenting From Reaction to Reflection, How Awareness Heals Relationships. Thanks, Nadia.
Welcome everyone. What's the story that I shared last summer? Very moving, isn't it? Interesting enough, working with couples, I noticed that men cry significantly more on my couch than women. I wonder if it's couples because they really have to hold their tears in everyday life, and finally on my couch it feels like they're allowed to cry. Or maybe there's something else happening around it. Or hopefully men are more allowed and feel more free to actually cry in space. Or counsel or whatever they like to. Maybe a bit of both. So as Daniel mentioned, I work with couples. I work also with organizations, and today's information would be relevant to obviously, I will mainly give examples about couples. However, this could apply to friends, parents, children relationships. I'm talking about adults, obviously children and parents relationship, peers, even sometimes countries. Yeah, so I'm going to talk about self-awareness and how it's going to help you to heal your relationship. So working with couples, this is the typical couple that I see on my couch. There is terminology complainant and guest, not from me. There was a researcher by surname named Faith who coined this terminology, but I think it's brilliant, and that's why I'm using it today. So normally I have a complainant and the guest. So the complainant would say something like that. My partner has changed. They don't listen to me, they don't do chores, they never look after children, they whatever. Yeah, they're always unhappy with something. And the key theme, change my partner and I'll be happy. And of course we have a guest. We have a guest who normally when I ask them, why are you here on the first day, they would say, well, my partner made me to come here. Or they would say, they blackmailed me. Or once a husband mentioned, oh, my wife told me she'll divorce me if we don't come to couples therapy. So, guest doesn't really want to be there. And they're not even really sometimes sure why they're there. Anyway, both of them have a very low self-awareness. And most of the time, they're not even willing to work on the true problem. The problem they've created together. And when I say created together, I mean they're both part of the problem. The complainant thinks that the guest is everything is their fault, and the guest, obviously thinks that everything is perfect and they don't even understand why they're there. And occasionally, some of them become my clients, which have been my clients, the people who realize that they are a part of the problem. They created this relationship. And they're willing to look at themselves and work on themselves. They sound like true clients. Sometimes I get very lucky and the clients come from the day one. Sometimes it's often quite interesting that the guest who doesn't want to be there in day one realizes in few sessions that it's not everything is their fault, and actually the complainant needs to take some responsibility. He really enjoys this process and they want to stay and they want to become a client, but the complainant say, no, I came to you to change my partner. What are you doing? So and they sometimes fire me. That happens to me. So today we're going to talk about how is it to be a client. You don't have to go to therapy to be a client. You can start working on yourself in the little steps. So number one, let's talk about relationship. Relationship is a dance. So what is a dance? Dance consists of several steps, and most importantly, it is a movement. Yeah. So it could be a tango, it could be a rock and roll, it could be waltz, it can be something very slow, very dynamic, but most importantly, it needs to be a dance. Susan Johnson recognized it as tango is the movement between the partners, and orphans, one of the key movements is going back into childhood therapy, childhood experiences, because she believes that attachment that we created affects our relationship with the partner now, which I totally agree with. However, I believe it's more than the childhood trauma. Sometimes it could be past relationship that affect us in our present relationship. Or, as Simon was saying, his culture. Yeah. Or it could be, the background you're from. So all these sort of things affect us and how we behave in our relationship. So I've chosen today another form of dance based on Rita and Robert Resnick. They're Gestalt therapists who work with couples for 50 years, and that's what I like using in my work. So when we have a healthy dance, when we have a healthy relationship, we have different types of steps. Yeah, so we have a withdrawal. It's when you do something on your own. Withdrawal not to punish your partner. We're going to talk about that. That's that. So withdrawal when you go to do your study, or follow your hobby, or do spend time with your friends. And that's an important part of the steps. Then you have connection. Connection is the true, deep and meaningful conversation. When you're fully present, when you're with your partner, not on your phone. Yeah, you may have be in a conflict with your partner, but not necessarily fully present. When you listen, when you're self-aware, and when you're aware of what's going on in the room. So that's a close move, and that's a contact. And often during that contact, we discuss our differences. Difference is something that often is seen as something negative in Western world, and probably in Western world too. Yeah. So if this person is different, they're bad. Stranger is a danger because they're different to us. Look at watch TV at any moment. There's a lot of discussion how strangers are bad people. If people are not like us, they're probably bad people. Okay? And that unfortunately works a lot, happens a lot in relationship. I like to clean my kitchen this way. He doesn't like it doing it the same way, so he's a bad person. Yeah? So difference is something that's negative. However, the difference creates boundary. Boundaries not only separates us, yes, we're different, but it also connects us. You cannot create the true connection who is exactly like you. If you've ever been in a relationship, I'm sure you could reflect on it now and say there would be some qualities in your partner that really complimented you, or encourage you to grow, encourage you to develop and be a bit different too. So the difference is useful in our dance of relationship. So when we truly understand, go into intimacy, and I think it's all of us experience that at least at some point of time, when you were in the same space, we're in tune and totally understand each other. And this is the moment when, honeymoon, hopefully, or any other romantic stages, happen in our relationship. We also may have a bit of a fusion sometimes. So when we're so much into each other's life, we're doing the same things, we're following the same rules, and which is great too. The problem is when we get stuck at one of those stages. If we get stuck in withdrawal, we get disconnected. If we get stuck in fusion, we get enmeshed, and we become codependent, and we not allowing the differentiation, the difference in our space, and relationships become boring, sometimes stuck, and there's no development, there's no movement. So the dance needs movement, and that's, as I said, a health version. Never sitting down on my couch. So normally, I see people And this is the type of behavior I see. Criticism, okay? So, you never wash dishes. You never do that. You always do that. Yeah? And the criticism creates defensiveness. No, it's not never. Sometimes I do it. What about yourself? Yeah? So, in some cases, it creates stonewalling. Stonewalling is when we do not talk to each other, do not talk to your partner to punish them. Not intentionally punish them, but normally you're so overwhelmed, you have so many emotions that you cannot even look at your partner. By the way, that withdrawal is not a bad idea at that stage, as long as you don't stop. And the last but not least is the worst thing ever. Contempt. There was research done in the 90s by Julie and John Gottman, who created a love lab in America, and for 30 years they were observing couples, same couples, they would come back with India, and they just would watch the interaction. You know, they were able to predict divorce rate by 90% based on one behavior. They didn't need to listen to what these people were talking about. All they watched is the facial expression. And the facial expression was contempt. Yeah. Because contempt is a poison. Contempt on the basic level shows disgust. When you're thinking you're better than your partner, when you're thinking you're better than your partner, better than your friend, or relative, or whoever. Yeah? You probably have seen that a lot in politicians. Yeah? The people on TV. So that's the worst possible poison for any relationship. So what can we do about it? Self-awareness. By the way, none of these behaviors means the end of the life. Yeah? Even many differences again doesn't mean the end of relationship. It's how we approach them. And approach number one, become a client and increase your self-awareness. So my exercise number one that I practice as a couple is stop. Stop doesn't mean stop for hours. Stop, I mean stop for a second. Stop for a couple of seconds. I would like to invite you to stop now. And go back inward and just to see what's going on in you. Some of you may be annoyed, some of you may be happy, some of you may be curious. What is going on to you? Get connected to your body sensations and look around. What's happening? In what space? Is it dark? Or is it too much light? How comfortable you are, how people around you. Okay. Even simple stop can help you to increase your awareness and probably do not react. Yeah? And when I mean react, criticism, defense, stonewalling, contempt. Yeah? So practicing regular stop may help you to reduce this or unseasoned relationship. So if you could, at the moment, let's just go back to I've included some experimentation in my session. So if you can go back into your feelings and just, you don't need to say it to me, but just in your mind, is it can you identify two body sensations and two feelings you're experiencing at the moment? You will be amazed how difficult it is for most of my clients. I actually have a special handouts that I give them for the first, 10 sessions, just to increase their self-awareness. Most people actually struggle to describe how they feel. Maybe struggle even to describe their body sensations. Maybe you have it itchy leg. What's going on to you? If you struggle, this is a fantastic app. Strongly recommend you to use it. Okay? So that's again something you can do yourself. You begin today. It's a free app developed by Harvard University. What I love about it, you can identify your emotion. You can set up your alarm for 2-3 times a day. Yeah. And it will send you a reminder to identify the feeling. And the good thing about it, it actually explains the meaning of the feeling because a lot of people struggle to recognize their emotions. And then by the end of the month, you can actually check how you feel overall. And that's again another very strong preventative tool to help you with mental health. Okay. But also with your relationship. See, I actually, as you can see, this person feels happy. And that's a positive, high energy, positive emotions. However, there are moments that person gets angry or sometimes gets sad. Or sometimes maybe get low energy but positive as well. So it's a really good tool, strongly recommend you. When you identify this emotion, the next step, how we work with emotion, once you identify it, go deeper. Often, when I ask clients how they feel, they say, I'm frustrated, I'm irritated, I'm angry. These are all forms of anger. But the thing is, we really, very rarely feel anger. Anger is our prime emotion. Anger is an emotion that helps us to move, that helps us to fight for our boundaries, that helps us to change the situation. But it's not the prime emotion. And when you stop and think and go deeper, you probably will find fear, maybe guilt, maybe envy, maybe childhood trauma, maybe anxiety, maybe loneliness. And that's where ease appears. And when you begin communication from that soft emotion, it's very hard to be critical. And it's very hard to be defensive. But if you communicate from anger, then you never do that. You always park your car in such a silly way. You never walk the dog. You will be surprised how conversations we have about pets. The topics used to be money, children, chores, sex. Now, it's all 4 plus pets. So, I think that's the new babies. So go deeper. Next one, identify your bias. We all have bias. It could be cultural bias, it could be educational bias, it could be bias coming from your family. Allow the space for difference. What you think is right is just the reality. It's not the truth. Stay curious. Be open to the difference. I'd like to do another experiment. Think about, I said 3, but if you can think of 2 qualities that you really appreciate in other people, just see for yourself and about these qualities. Beauty, kindness, whatever kindness, generosity, whatever that is, politeness. I can guarantee you that at least one of these qualities will be the quality that made you successful in this life, or made you successful in relationship, in work, something like that. Because we like people like us. Yeah, that's called projection. And the thing is, remember what I mentioned before? If people exact like us, you do not create differentiation. Hence, it will be much harder to create a connection. Difference is good. Second, the next one, review your values. Values, there's a plethora of research showing that the values affect our decision making and our behavior. who had sets of values, which changed. At least in the next 5 or 10 years, your values will be changed. So do regular values inventory. What is important to me now? And communicate that to your partner. I've been married just 1 year, but I've been with this man for 10 years. And a few years ago, he told me you've changed. And I said, I know I have, very much so. Because when you met me, I was station free. I'm not station free anymore. So I'm in my 40s. I'm a different person. Even if we have changed even physically. Yes, I like different things. I have different values. So the success in relationship is not to stay the same. It's to continue developing your curiosity and keep getting to know each other. There's a book I've read by one of the psychotherapists here in Western Australia. And he said, I was married 5 times to the same person. And I think this is the key to successful relationship. I also, sorry, I forgot to mention, for your values, I prepared for you a little souvenir to take home. Maybe play with your friend or your partner or anyone else you like. It's a values activity. So I've prepared for you a list of values, and you can take it slowly. It may take a few days to go through this list and select values that are like you and that are not like you. And maybe communicate it to your friend or your partner or whatever you or your parent. Okay. So you can pick them up at the exit. Another thing what's good to improve or recognizing yourself is your conflict style. Have you read the book? Show me with your hands who read the book, 5 Languages of Love. Yeah? Some people read that? Like words of affirmation, acts of service, intimacy, things like that. Very popular book, Dr. Chapman did a good job. But the thing is, we also have our own conflict style. And the conflict style is very important to recognize it in yourself. Conflict style has 3 dimensions. So first is our sensitivity. We're all sensitive to different topics, to different things. Yeah, we all have our own triggers. Some people, it's politics. For other people, I don't know, being vegetarian or something like that. Yeah? Yeah, so I can see. It's quite important, some people. So we all have our sensitive points. So recognize what is sensitive for you. Perhaps communicate that to your partner. That's a sensitive topic for me. If you ever want to communicate that, can you prepare? Can you prepare me in advance? Reactivity. We all react differently. Some fight straight away. A lot of anger. Some people use roar. Again, recognize that in yourself and communicate that to your partner. So listen, when I get scared, I cry, or I run away, I struggle, I have so much emotions, please give me space. Okay? Or if I get really angry, I apologize for that, but probably I will withdraw myself because I don't want to hurt your feelings. I am a reactive person. Yeah, work on it. And the time to get back to equilibrium. So scientifically, it takes us at least an hour to reduce our level of cortisol and the level of adrenaline with which we experience during the stressful situation. So again, if you're doing it intentionally, which means you're not going back or after the conflict, you're going back home and thinking remunerate all the bad stuff you think about your partner. If you don't do that, that's you're going back to equilibrium. But if you continue thinking, okay, 1 hour will finish. Once I asked one of my couples, can you please do not talk to each other at least for an hour if you have a conflict, then try to communicate. They said, when they came back, they said, it doesn't work. I said, okay, what did you do that hour? Well, what I said, I was thinking about all the stuff I'm going to tell him when this hour will finish.
equilibrium. Go back to equilibrium. Go for a walk. Take your dog for a walk. I don't know. Do some dishes. Clean the house. Get some work done. Take breathing exercise. Meditate. Yeah. So that it will take you probably at least 1 hour to go back. And the last but not least, try to change your behavior. So remember, being a client is not about changing your partner, it's about changing yourself. So these are the 4 reactive behaviors. So instead of criticism, slow down and use I. Not you, never wash your dishes. When I came back home tired and I saw dishes in the thing, I felt, to be honest, I'm very frustrated. Because I was exhausted. And I thought we had an agreement. I know it's but it takes practice. Practice, breathe, and stop. Take responsibility. If your partner comes to you about the dirty dishes, say, yes, I completely forgot. I'm sorry. If your reaction is stonewalling, you stop talking to your partner for hours or days. I know couples like that, for days. Practice self-regulation. Normally it happens when we have so many emotions, we are so overwhelmed that we struggle to communicate to our loved ones. So yoga, meditation, walking, fishing, I don't know, whatever, cross stitch, whatever floats your boat, yeah, to self-regulate. And contempt, show appreciation. Develop a culture of appreciation. Tell your friends, tell your family how much you appreciate what they've done for you, how beautifully they look, what they've done, how you appreciate that they actually spend 5 minutes listening to you while you are reading about your work. Okay, so this is the basic approach. Yes, this is it sounds simple, but it's actually not very easy to implement. But I left it last because, as I said, it all begins with stop, recognize yourself, go back into your emotions, go deeper into your emotions, and communicate from that space. And start communicating with you. Move that finger to yourself. What about me? What have I done to create this? Any questions?
Nadia.
Yeah.
In our house, we use the Goldilocks and the 3 Bears someone. So say, oh, someone hasn't done the dishes. And the other person say, oh no, they haven't. And so then people do the dishes, even though I made Andrew do the dishes. Is that healthy?
Well, it's a human, right? So, and you're definitely trying to avoid blame, which is really good. Yeah.
But still put my point across.
Yes. Well, he is taking responsibility then. So it's helpful.
And then we do it together. Right?
Yeah, exactly. You're not blaming and there is humor. Humor is very strong. Yeah. If it's not sarcasm. Like sarcasm is contempt. Yeah. But humor is definitely very
I will keep doing.
Yeah. Yeah.
What started you down the path on learning about these things and wanting to be able to teach them to other people? Where to begin and why did you choose this path?
Well, as I think for most counselors, it started with our personal history, isn't it? I was actually thinking to begin my speech with that. I come from Soviet Union, from now it's Russia, yeah. So from a family of at least 3 generations before me, where functional relationship never been modeled. So my parents divorced, and everybody else, all their siblings are divorced. Most of the siblings, not all actually. My grandparents have been divorced or widows, which often been widowed because of the suicide, caused by mental health, addictions, and things like that. But before them, what happened, there was Russian Empire, yeah, and my family, they were wealthy farmers. couples here in Vincent Street. Also work with the families, individuals, as I said, all genders, all ages. Really nice to see that a lot of my clients actually are quite young these days, even couples who are just dating stage come and to improve their relationship. Because therapy is not when, you know, you're on the verge of edge of divorce. Ideally, you know, you come when you're just want to improve and enhance your relationship. I also do little workshops in a very intimate small space, 6 to 9 people. If you would like to hear about it or attend my workshops, that usually happens here in Vincent Street 2, you can sign up with your name and your email, and that's outside as well. Okay. Thank you very much, everyone.
Amazing presentation on
Yeah.
why I'm single. We are half time of day one of TAFE Talks. We're going to take a quick half-hour break through to 10:45. Our next presenter is Scott Adam, the Director of Media and Music Portfolio at North Metro TAFE, presenting Sound Mind. So we would love to see you back in half an hour. In the meantime, feel free to have a quick chat with Nadia. Hop outside to visit in a cup for power teas and acai bowls. Okay, we'd love to see you back at 10:45. If you're not returning though, please keep an eye on your inbox in the coming days for feedback forms, which we appreciate you filling out. See you in about half an hour.
Right, I'm gonna ask if he wants me to keep streaming. Take it easy.
I might pop in and say hi. Are you going to be there Thursday?
Yeah, I'll be here.
No. Oh, you're not going to be at performance week?
I'll be in Yarmouth. I'm here until 12 today.
Yeah, this is like, I don't really do anything to this session. Yeah. Nothing.
Yeah, I got
I definitely like just a sound.
Sure.
So just this one here.
Yeah.
live. Thought I'd make a little corner at the back here. This one's busy.
Right, welcome back everyone. Lovely to see some familiar faces. 10:45 on to our next presentation. So, I'd like to introduce Scott Adams. So on top of a 30-year career in education, Scott has spent 25 plus years working as a band manager and music promoter, running his own businesses, which included a record label and a graphic design business. He finished up with band management in 2014, to focus more on his training career, which led to a strong interest in coaching, mental health, well-being, psychology, and neuroscience. Combining his continued passion for music, Scott has been looking into the crossover of sound, music, how we feel, and how we think. I'm pleased to introduce Scott Adams, Director of the Music and Media Portfolio at North Metropolitan TAFE, presenting Sound Lines.
I'd like to just acknowledge that we're on Butcher, and I pay my respects to elders past, present and emerging, and I'd also like to acknowledge the 65,000-year legacy that Indigenous people have in terms of creativity, particularly music, which is today's topic of my TAFE Talk. Really happy to be here at TAFE Talks. It's something that I used to work in the events portfolio many years ago, and it was something that I saw the birth of from the whole events, travel and tourism team, and so to finally come and talk is absolutely awesome. So, music. I've got a little record player here in the background, I'll sort of get onto that in a minute. The thing that fascinated me about music and the whole brain thing, I brought my brain, demo here, my squishy brain. The whole brain thing was, I suppose it was born out of the fact that I was never a particularly good musician, but I absolutely loved music. And I just wanted to hang around musicians and songwriters and that sort of, that kind of environment. And I often wondered, what was it that actually drew me to that environment? Like, what was it that really fascinated me? I'm a bit of a deep thinker, and so I wanted to start exploring that. I found that, going to see live music was really important to me because it wasn't just about listening to music, it was also about experiencing it by seeing it, by feeling it, by smelling it, particularly in the mosh pit at a festival, you can definitely smell it there. And again, it was this thing, what is this connection that I have with it? Because there's also people that I know that don't really sort of feel it, but there's so many people in my world that do. And so again, it was something I really wanted to explore. And I found that looking into sort of brain stuff like neuroscience and a bit of psychology was really important to make that discovery. So I've also had a real interest in the tactility of music, so the actual way that music sort of evolved over the years. Like everyone, put your hands up if you actually listen to records on one of these things. Okay, so there's quite a few. And it's really good to see young people listening to records. Okay, so you might have got that from your parents or family members, because it's certainly, being taken over by these things, phones. And I find that the tactility of music is really critical for us as people because we need to, again, experience it in many ways. So when I started listening to music, I was listening to records, and then the records became cassettes. In both times, these records, in many ways, the records were the most tactile because you've got to go over this thing, you've got to lift the arm up, you've got to take the record out of the sleeve, you've got to put it gently on there so you don't scratch it, and then move it over again, and then drop the needle, and there you go. So, and then cassettes came along, and you had to take the cassette out of the box, put it in the cassette player, and that sort of thing. So again, we were touching, we were feeling, we could see the music happening. And then the CD player came along, And everyone sort of moved from cassettes and records over to CDs, and what happened there was it just disappeared into a black box and you didn't really see it. You press a couple of buttons. You could still skip tracks and there was some sort of interaction there, but that was about it. And these days, and this is not me just sort of being a Generation X going, oh, back in my day, I actually have a strong feeling that, you know, the tactility of music has just disappeared. So those of you that are getting into, actually, are there anyone that's listening to cassettes? Yeah. Because they did sort of make something of a bit of a hipster comeback. Oh, nice one. Yeah. So they, and you can go to record stores, second-hand record stores, and still see cassettes and that sort of thing on sale, which is kind of cool. But again, it's that thing, the tactility is gone because you just press a button on your phone. Even with computers and that sort of thing, I always said that the actual music, the MP3 files that we were listening to was right next to the trash can. So you just, I don't like that, and just click and drag them. So the disposability of music came. So one of the things I want people to take away from today is really investigating your experience with music. And some of that might be the tactility, so how you actually listen to music and what format is really basically, the next 30 minutes, we're going to give you some brainstorm that will hopefully explain where the connection exists and why the connection exists with us as human beings. And also, I'm going to give you some things to talk about with your friends, and also think about yourself, for yourself, and what you can do to use music in your daily life, and hopefully improve your well-being as a result of it. Okay, so I'll move on into the power of music. Here we go. So sound wise. And is the animation no? The animation's not working. Here we go. Cool. Okay, I might have to play around with it for a bit. So music and mental well-being. So music plays a pivotal role in enhancing mental health by improving mood and reducing stress. Everyone here that listens to music probably has that experience with it. What's really interesting, there's some statistics around this. There's a lot of research into music, and 90% of people research listen to music to relax. About 80% or thereabouts, these are sort of averaging figures, about 80% listen to music to make them feel happy. And then there's about 50% or thereabouts that actually listen to music to process feelings, process emotions, and so on. So it's very, very important in our daily lives. And all of you probably already have an experience with music, maybe a very deep feeling with it. Emotional expression through music. So it serves as a universal language, enabling emotional expression beyond words. The really interesting thing about the research and the neuroscience around music as well is that it really actually works at a very, very deep level. It works at a neural pathways level in our brain. It works right through our body, and our interaction with that, it goes back, to ancient times. In fact, it was the very first language. You can see from the next slide. And also incorporating music in daily life, regularly engaging with music can boost focus, motivation, and social connections. So I'll talk about that in a second as well. Okay, before we spoke, we made music. So there's a particular thing, I got permission to use this picture. The really interesting thing about this, does anyone know the significance of Western Australian Indigenous music? And there might be this wide held belief around particular instruments are a very popular instrument in Indigenous music in Western Australia. Anyone sort of have any comments around didgeridoos or anything like that with regards to Western Australia? No. I'll tell you something, just a little, I'll give you all this like little trivial facts. Might actually work at a quiz night one night. Tapping sticks, boomerangs, two traditional West Australian, well, for West Australian country, traditional instruments. Didgeridoo, not West Australian, from elsewhere. But they do play it. But yeah, something, a little bit of trivia for you. Anyway, origins of musical communication. Early humans communicated using rhythm, tone, and melody before spoken languages existed. May have been inspired by the communication of animals, which I found a really interesting little fact. So yeah, so basically before we could talk, we were making music. So we were able to communicate across large areas and that sort of thing, drums and so on. Was a big one, and also making various instruments from various animal parts and things like that was also pretty much the common thing for the day, not good for the people. Okay, so music and emotional connection or not. So music conveyed emotion and intention. So the really interesting thing about it as well with music, again, it's this physical thing. We can feel music. We can really feel it to a core level. So if you hear some big booming drums, you know, big deep drums, that could actually be very intimidating. That could feel like a sign of aggression. Whereas if you hear something in a higher register that's light and nice, it will invoke a feeling of, I don't know, calm or happiness or something like that. So music can communicate intention better than words can. So that, again, that's why it was a very important part of our language. It was also used to help bond people and express feelings universally, and it could also be used to warn, scare and intimidate, like I just mentioned. It's no wonder that we have this connection with music because we've got a drum in our chest, our heart. 2 years ago I had a valve replacement, so now I've got a permanent metronome. It's a titanium thing, and it's really, really quiet. You can hear it. So yeah, I play drums, so it helps. Music is a universal language. It transcends vocabulary barriers and is a timeless tool for navigating, learning, surviving, storytelling and healing. The slide again, going back to that, songlines. You know about songlines, or you may not know about songlines. There was an excellent exhibition at a local museum when it first opened. I don't know, I think it might still be doing the rounds of the world, but it was all about songlines, and I found that really fascinating because it was all used around, you know, navigating. This is where the best food is. This is how you get from one place to another. This is who lives there, and all that sort of thing. And it was not a written language. It was conveyed through song and through dance and through music. So very, very important. Okay, moving along. The music and human development. So this is just a quick one. Lots of research in this area. So those of you that have had children may have been listening to music and suddenly there's all this activity from inside of you. Basically fetuses can respond to rhythmic sounds, like a heartbeat and voice as early as 18 weeks. They can respond to music as well. Infants' musical sensitivity, well before they can talk. Newborns recognise lullabies and the voice and tempo changes and so on. A couple of comments about that. I remember when my daughter, when she was born, she was always very, very good at sleeping. And there used to be a show at, we're very grateful for that. There was a show on Triple J called 3 Hours of Power, the heavy metal show. And we used to put her cot next to 3 Hours of Power while it was playing. Not too loud, mind you, but just enough. And so she was getting used to heavy metal music. And today she actually loves a wide range of music and that sort of thing. But I suppose it was part of the training and get her to sleep for heavy metal music. She could sleep for anything. Music role in development. It shapes our neural pathways, as I mentioned before. It helps with our emotional regulation, our language skills, and our mastery in early life. So children really respond to mother's voice and also father's voice with singing and that sort of thing. We've always had musical instruments in our household. I don't play really any of them very good, but I always go with the crack. And I always encourage my children to also try and make music, and fortunately now I've got 2 children who play music. Anyway, moving along, neuroscience and music, so brain regions activation. So music activates multiple brain areas involved in emotion, so that's the amygdala, okay, and the amygdala is the little section here, in the middle. And then you've also got memory, so the hippocampus, which is the one here, so the back of the amygdala. And then you've also got the auditory cortex and motor cortex simultaneously. So music literally moves you. It's it creates this neurochemical release. It's like a neurochemical cocktail. So basically you have all these chemicals floating around in your body. So for example, like dopamine, which is involved with pleasure and reward, oxytocin, which is involved with bonding, and serotonin, which is mood regulation. So music activates all of that. Just by listening to music, you will get that activation. It increases when you listen and watch live music. So live music has a much more enhanced effect than just listening to recorded music. There's that old saying, music sees the savage beast, and it's very true. It also helps promote neuroplasticity, which is why I have this squishy brain, because years ago they thought everything finished at the age of 25, and that your brain is kind of like set in stone and that's it. And then lots and lots of research back in the 60s and 70s, they discovered, oh no, there's this thing called neuroplasticity. And what that means is that you've got the same amount of brain cells, or neurons in your brain, but they can be rewired. And guess what helps rewire it? Music. So when you're older, people like me, it's really important to listen to more music because it helps rewire your brain. There's a whole lot of other complex things going on as well, like getting really good sleep and that sort of thing. Listening to music in your sleep, like really, really quiet, actually has shown really positive benefits on brain health, which is fantastic. But yeah, it helps to rewire your brain. Before the age of 25, you're just building lots and lots of neurons and so on, from brain cells. It can also lower your cortisol, fight or flight response. So cortisol is a stress hormone that kicks in, and it's one of those things that it can bring on anxiety and so on. So that's the fight or flight. Oh, I don't know what to do with the situation. So you either run away or hide or whatever, or you come out fighting. But it reduces them by about 28%. On the flip side of that, music, depending if it really charges you up and makes you feel energized and motivated, it can release some cortisol as well. So it can actually help motivate and charge you up. Therapeutic benefits: reduces stress, alleviates depression symptoms, enhances cognitive performance's mental health tool. It can synchronize brain waves and improve mood. Speaks directly to our emotions and makes us feel beyond words. Listening to music after age 70 cuts dementia risk by 39%. In fact, if you're, and this is actually really new research that's just been released in the last month. So it was Monash University, out of 10,800 adults, older adults, and they basically said, listen to music, even at the age of 70, listen to music. And the one interesting thing is it didn't matter what genre of music, it could be any music. But the fact of the matter is when you're listening to music, and we're not talking lyrics or whatever, and the words are saying, saying positive things or whatever, that doesn't matter. It's the actual music that really counts. And the listening to it. Okay, emotional and social impact of music. Alright. This is something I love doing, is going to concerts. Again, it's part of that thing that's really ingrained in me. I don't know who here likes going to festivals and concerts and seeing live music. Yeah, there's something about it, right? Like if I go for a month without going to see live bands, I just start feeling a bit weird. I'm probably not very nice to be around. I actually need to go and see live music all the time. I went to the Bridgetown Blues Festival on the weekend with my brother and brother-in-law. One of the really important things I've done through my life is have a gig buddy. So you might have gone through school and all your friends are kind of doing their thing. No, I don't really go see live music, but I want to go see live music. Go find your gig buddy. This is the great thing about TAFE. You're probably sitting next to someone who could be your gig buddy. I have gig buddies overseas. I have gig buddies over east whenever I travel, and I go and see live music with them because not all of my friends want to go and see live music. They might listen to it, but I have to go and see it live. And it's also good experiencing with people because that's part of that bonding and that connection. Yeah, so critical. So yeah, it engages mirror neurons, helping audiences empathise and synchronise with one another. That's the other thing. One thing that really blew me away when I did this research is I looked into the fact that all of our cells in our entire body produce a barely audible frequency. Right? Now, I'll leave that for a moment, just sort of hover that in the air. Like, your whole body is singing. is producing like all the cells, depending on the size of your organs and the cells and that sort of thing, where they are in your body, there's various different frequencies. Now, if everyone in this room is doing that, there's a connection there, there's a frequency connection between everyone. So that universal consciousness that you might have read about in sort of New Agey books and stuff like that, there's actually some real substance in it, but it's scientific substance because our frequencies are connected. I know it sounds weird, but I'll get to the references in a minute, so it's not just some crazy guy up front telling you all this stuff. It's, it's all backed by good science. So basically mirror neurons, helping audiences empathise and synchronise with one another, creating strong social bonds and inclusivity. So cell frequencies, I talked about that. Emotional impact of music. Live performances amplify emotional responses, making listeners feel deeper connections and authentic feelings through sound. So again, it's like being in the same place at the same time. Concerts are so critical. There's a really interesting thing I observed on the weekend where my brother met up with someone he works with that they don't get along very well. It's the first time they've been to a concert together. Right throughout the weekend, they were sort of bumping into each other and changing notes. By the end of the weekend, they were really getting along. So again, it's that common ground, it's that common experience that brings people together. Social bonding and resilience. Participating in group musical activities reduces isolation and strengthens social ties and emotional resilience in a fast-paced life. The power of shared experience. So being in a band is really, really good. Who are the musicians in the room? I can't really see through the lights. Couple? Yeah, great, excellent. So basically if you're playing music, getting people together is a wonderful thing. You know, getting your mates together and playing music. I remember when I was managing a band once, it was one experience that still comes to mind is that one of the bands, I actually thought they were going to break up before the gig. Literally, they were supposed to go on stage in about 20 minutes, and they were having one of the biggest fights in verbal stages in the green room, in the band room. And I thought, so I had to go around and just kind of go, we've got a gig to play, calm down, leave it till later. They got up there, they played probably one of the best shows I've ever seen them play, and not only that, afterwards, they all came together and they all just went and got a coffee and got something to eat, and were all mates again just from that experience. It's just amazing to see something like that when I thought, this is their last gig. They're going to break up. But no, the power of music came together, brought them together, and that shared experience was so critical to that. Music catharsis. Okay, interesting thing about that is as well, it's part of that processing that we do as people. So I listen to sad music when I'm sad, it's part of my grieving routine. I have to listen to something really, really sad and just let everything out. It's cathartic. It's got to happen. Just as when I feel like I want to celebrate, I put on some real kind of energy charged music, again, it's a catharsis. So sad music like blues allows emotional processing, offers a way to handle complex feelings. Fast forward decades later to heavy metal music, a safe outlet for intense emotions like anger and frustration. It's about processing and it's about releasing. So, whatever the style of music you listen to, it does have that therapeutic purpose. Okay, hardship and hope. The blues genre originated from resilience, reflecting human suffering and hope through music. Folk music, country, punk, reggae, and hip hop are all telling a story. Motivates us to get up, rise up, and move forward through it. Social effects of music. Sad music activates brain regions linked to empathy and emotional regulation. Lyrics are an insight to many lifetimes of experience. So the actual feelings that we get, that chemical cocktail that I talked about in our brain, that really comes from music. But when you're thinking about music and you're listening to the lyrics, that really has a massive impact on you also being able to connect with other people's experience. They write from the heart. People that write songs about love and loss and hope and all those sorts of things, we actually see into someone else's life. We may not be consciously sitting there going, wow, this is a window into this person's life, but on a subconscious level it's working that way. So you actually start to understand people a lot more by listening and really focusing on music. Music is a healing tool. Expressing sorrow through music transforms pain, promoting self-reflection and well-being, right from the heart, and be authentic. This song here, somebody that I used to know by Gautier, do you know it? Yeah.
Yes.
Of course you do. It's like one of the biggest hits that have come out of Australia. So it made this guy very, very rich. Now he just writes songs for films and all that sort of stuff, and does other bits and pieces as well. Still recording and so on. I know Wally Tobacco is his actual name. Gautier. The biggest thing that everyone used to talk about with this song was the reason for its big success is it took the lyrics and it took the melody and joined them together perfectly. Like the melody of that song is hauntingly accurate to the lyrics and the story of the song. But also the lyrics and the story of the song connects with a lot of people. Like it's universal. That story is completely universal. All right, I'm gonna skip through these because I'm just looking at the time, and I do I'm never short of a word. So, giving a little bit of insight to the sort of connections that various styles of music had. So, stress reduction, emotional response, social bonding. As you can see, classical is very good with stress reduction and an emotional response. And then over the top of that, you've got heavy metal, strong emotional response and social bonding. That's another thing. As human beings, we're tribal. We're right about tribalism. Yeah. So some subcultures that are based on fashion and music and all that sort of things. I mean, we still have them to this day. But your heavy metal subcultures and your punks and folk and blues and EDM and all that sort of stuff. Like there's a particular look, a particular style, and it all sort of brings people together, and they have that thing in common. What's really interesting now, though, is because of our access to music, and I will say this about this thing, the phone music, is that people will create playlists. So the idea of an album isn't really a big thing, but a playlist is. And you can listen to country music 1 second, then heavy metal, and then a folk song, and then a punk song, and then some electronic music, some EDM or something like that, hip hop, whatever, and not really think anything of it as unusual, right? That's the current generation. That's what the current generation is doing with music right now, which is awesome. I mean, people who have been real music enthusiasts can do that as well, but it just seems to be a lot more commonplace. And I'm observing this through my kids who are 20 and 21 right now, and all of their friends, because I'm always talking about what music you're listening to, and what's on your playlist, and I'm always discovering new stuff. Ambient music, stress reduction, calming and meditative, pop, high and social bonding, often linked to shared cultural experiences. That's a big one, because pop music festivals bring people together. And also it's the most common, it's the thing that people can sort of associate with the most. Like I said, Peter Gautier's song, somebody that I used to know, that's a pop song. It got huge international airplay, everyone knows it. So automatically everyone in the room goes, oh yeah, I know that song, and everyone, suddenly feels connected through that. Jazz, balance, stimulates cognition and emotion while offering moderate stress relief. Really good for cognitive stuff, particularly the instrumental. I won't tell my jazz joke because it makes me very uncomfortable. I always say, actually, I can't help myself. I always say the only people having a good time with jazz are the musicians. Yes. Right, so music as a tool for mental wellness. Okay, so binaural beats. This is one thing, looking at the time. How am I going with the time? Can I keep going? Right, speaker and upwards. Sorry. This is something that I want you all to take away and just experiment with. Get onto Spotify, get onto Apple Music, look up binaural beats, put headphones on, and when you've got to do some assignment work that you're doing this, listen to binaural beats, okay? Because, I don't know, it might not work for you, I don't know, but there's a lot of research around, like huge amounts of research around this, that binaural beats, so what it is, it's basically saying two different frequencies that are being played, one in one ear, one in the other ear. And the difference, your brain is kind of making up. So it's actually making your brain work. But it allows you to focus, because it's sort of that's all happening in the background. So if something happens in your prefrontal cortex, which is your conscious brain that does a lot of sort of moralising and all this sort of conscious stuff when you're studying and so on, something happens in that and makes it actually supercharge the focus. But you've got to do it with headphones, because it's not going to work otherwise. And yeah, so definitely write that down in your phone, binaural beats, check it out, play around with it. There's a heap of stuff out there. It's very exciting. So it improves cognitive performance, it can reduce anxiety. Oh, the other thing about it is it's generally around about 44 hertz difference, but it can depend on where in the frequencies it is. So some of it will help you sleep, some of it will help relax you, some of it will help you be super focused. So you can experiment and have a look. The order of focus. So when you are trying to focus, binaural beats isn't like some superhuman power or anything like that. Silence is still good. The research shows that silence is really important when you try to study. But there's white noise and brown noise as well. White noise is all the frequencies all at the same time. Brown noise is heightened frequencies throughout a spectrum of frequencies. Instrumental music, and then nothing in the middle. Music with vocals is no, I don't even try. So a lot of people go, oh yeah, I can study with music vocals. You're not going to be able to do it, well, the research shows, you're not going to be able to do it as well as this stuff here. And your favourite music, forget about it. You're going to be too busy wanting to sing along or tap your foot, or, you're going to be disengaged in what it is that you're trying to do. The other thing about this resonant frequency that our cells emit, significance of this, it's only being looked at, but researchers are using it to target cancer cells. So they're using sound to target cancer cells in our body, because now they know that all the cells are making frequencies. So, not medic, but more research about. So it's, it's pretty exciting. Motivation and movement, mindful of the time, so I'll just skip through this. This is a bit of a who goes to the gym? When I cycle, I like listening to Chemical Brothers. So if you like the Chemical Brothers, I don't know, there's something about the Chemical Brothers, pretty much everything that's bang out, I love it, I'm a massive fan. And there's just something of the time, it takes me back to a time that really energises me, I can get on the bike and just go. It's brilliant. So I have my, and also there's a band called Idols as well, which are a punk band that I really like, and they energise me. But yeah, there's a lot in it. It does motivate you. Music does actually make you physically move. There's a really interesting thing about what goes into our ears and then gets processed into our face muscles. So happy music can relax your brow. Sad music can sort of furrow your brow a bit. There's a deep bass frequencies that are sort of spaced at particular intervals, like a bass, really heavy bass line or something like that. In fact, I did it just then, right? I was thinking about it. There's this thing called bass space, right? And it's an actual thing, bass space, and you kind of, you're scrunching up. I think I've got the symptoms of bass space here. It says here, clenched jaw, forehead or cheek tension, eyebrow or eye movements, general face scrunching, rhythmic or uncontrollable head motions, so that's head banging, can be accompanied by other movements like arm movements. So that's dancing, right? So yeah, anyway, and it's uncontrollable sometimes. It's one of those things where the music will just enter us, we'll be tapping the foot, we'll tap the finger, or whatever, and probably when people around us in the room, as I always have, being a drummer, I always tapped my knee or whatever. Your music, your story. So this is kind of what we're winding towards. Personal connection to music. Music evokes memories and emotions, creating a unique personal connection for everyone. Okay, so what is your personal connection with your friends? What is your personal connection with your music? How are you going to introduce music on a daily basis if you don't already do that? Because it supports your mental and emotional health by lifting spirits, fostering self-expression. You can share stories. You have those points, those sort of commonalities between other people. You can talk about things. You can go and see live music and feel that social connection with people. Intentional music use, recognising music role helps use it intentionally for mental health and personal growth. Mindfulness through music. It's really, really important to be able to like sit out and be in the moment as well. Not be distracted. A lot of, background music is a thing, you're doing the housework or whatever, washing the dishes. I'm going to track some music on. I've heard a lot of albums over the years by doing dishes and doing housework. But there's also a really important thing that you can do just by sitting down and immersing yourself in it and listening to it. Think of it as like, I don't know, like when you relax or you do some meditation and some mindfulness, also try and work in music and do your own music therapy. So listening to a full album weekly fosters a deeper connection with music and enhances emotional resilience. Or a playlist of around about 30 to 40 minutes. Create a really good one that you really, really like and just sit down and listen to it. I collect records. I listen to at least one album every week from start to finish without doing anything else. So I've got a couch, I lie down on the couch, I listen to music every week, I listen to the album. And I love it. It's just part of my sort of weekly protocol. And I feel that it really does have a positive impact on my mental health. Live music events, attending live music events monthly promotes social engagement, reduces stress and builds community, as I said before. Self-care, making a regular practice supports your mental health. Also a couple of things, yoga nidra music. There's another thing you can look up, so apart from looking into binaural beats, or sound meditation. There are a couple of things that I do. Sound meditation, if you've got Apple Fitness, sound meditation, there's a heap of them on there. In fact, you can just go on YouTube and look up yoga nidra music or sound meditation, and you'll find a heap of stuff. Music and study work is binaural beats, deep focus, and music and teamwork activities for connection as well. Have a team playlist. So in events and travel and tourism and whatever other subjects you're studying, it's all teamwork, right? There's a lot of teamwork going on. Have a team playlist, because one of the things is when you're working in a team, it's about trying to find that commonality, yeah? And you're going to have conflict and you're going to have disagreements and no, we should do it this way, no, I want to do it that way, that kind of thing. If you come together and build a playlist and go, that's what's going to be on in the background while we're doing this, hopefully there's not too much fighting over what songs go on the playlist. Everyone should at least get 1 to 2 songs in the playlist. And then you can have that going. So that's another sort of practical piece of advice to help you with your team mental health. All right. So, wrapping up, these are some resources. You can take a photo of that if you like. So all of the stuff that I talked about today has come from these books. And one of my favourite podcasts on the planet is a guy called Andrew Huberman. He runs a thing called the Huberman Lab. If you haven't checked it out, you should. You'll learn a lot about really cool brain stuff, but it's amazing for your mental health routine as well. There's so many people talking about psychology and just how to improve fitness and nutrition through your brain. Because your brain connects to everything in your body, right? So it makes sense. Anyway, the Huberman Lab, highly recommend that. The episode that I used was how to use music to boost motivation, mood, and improve mental health. This is a good book, really easy read. That's it there. Everybody needs music, a little bit more complex, but if you want to give yourself a challenge, crank it up a bit, go for that one. This is what it sounds like. This is an amazing book. A friend of mine bought me this, and it's fantastic because it talks about your connection or people's connection with music on a sort of deeper level. It's not just talking about neuroscience and stuff. It's just talking about music and what it does and how cool it is. But it does also bring in some of the science. The other thing is, I kind of brought this in, which I haven't put it up here, but this is called the third space. This is something that I promoted a bit. We live in a world which is demanding so much from us all the time, yeah? And the third space is all about how do you transition from one moment to the other. So, in my experience, what I do is I go home, and rather than just going straight in and straight into cooking dinner or whatever, I need to give myself about 15-20 minutes to just transition into the home. And it's something that I do, and my family understands it, and I encourage them to do it. But it's the ability to transition from from work mode or study mode into home mode. It's really, really critical, and what I do, I use it to do that. So, but this guy, his name's Dr. Adam Fraser. He's an Australian psychologist, but he has this whole book on the third space, and the third space is the bit in between. So that's kind of cool. Rightio, and I think that's it.
Seamless transition to our 11:30 presentation. Once again, thank you to Scott. And while we are thanking presenters, I would love to thank our fantastic Auslan students. I believe this may be your last session with us today. Thank you so much. We appreciate your contribution. Binaural beats for study, a really good tip that I wish I had when I was trying to do my Sydney training and assessment. And all the help I could get with that one. Didn't finish it. Nadia was my lecturer actually, so I'm glad she's in the room. So we've got just 5 minutes until our next presenter, Saul Frank from Camera Electronic. 5 minutes, perfect amount of time to pop out to either cup and grab yourself a cup of power tea. I don't know if you've seen these cups, I'm going to grab mine. They're absolute monstrosities. $12 for that. Absolute value. So I encourage you with the 5 minutes you've got, pop out there, support our vendors. We'll see you at 11:30. Thanks.
Yeah, that's looking better. Have a squeeze.
Yeah.
going to get into it for our next session now. So our next speaker is Saul Frank. Saul left high school and entered an advanced diploma in business management at TAFE. That then led to a commerce degree at ECU. Not finishing his first semester at uni due to medical reasons. He then went travelling for 6 months. Returning, he asked his father to join the family business. He'd worked in every Saturday from the age of 14. This was granted on the condition that he worked from the bottom upwards and studied photography at TAFE. He took on that challenge and went from a storeman to sales and marketing to a director position. Saul has spoken at conferences in the retail space and judged at many photographic competitions, amongst volunteering in MC roles as well. Apparently everyone in this room has been MC except myself. He's looking forward to sharing his experiences and the ups and downs of family business, finance, staff and more, especially in the modern world. Please welcome Saul Frank, Director of Camera Electronic, presenting family business in retail photography and technology.
How's it going, everyone? And yeah, I did go to TAFE when we were at Mount Lolly, and I did come here for a little bit when we moved here. And it was an awesome photographic unit across the road. Okay, so yeah, family business. So that's my brother and I. That's my mum at the front, my daughter, and we really we embody everything to do with family business. So started 54 years ago. My father started the business then, and every Friday we wear these 50-year t-shirts. Now I know today's not Friday, but I thought why not? And we've got a new logo which is on our business cards. No, not on our cards, but you'll see it on some of our website and other stuff saying 54 years. And we're very proud of that fact. And through a lot of ups and downs in retail and photography, and it's literally gone from everyone using cameras to everyone not buying cameras and using their phone, and we went through some hard times, and now everyone's back into photography, and we've had to navigate that and work through that. So that's been, you'll hear about it now. So basically where we started, because I like to know the history, I'm really into that sort of stuff. When I did go travelling for 6 months was to discover where the family roots were from. So Dad was born here, his parents were migrants from Germany and Austria. They were Jews that escaped. On Mum's side was the same, they left London, came here. All hard-working grandparents, I always saw that from very young. But with Dad, we were clashing pretty badly. You know, you can imagine a 13-year-old boy, and I was the oldest, and we were just clashing. I wasn't sporty, neither was he, but I wasn't really into anything except sort of watching TV. And one of his best mates said to me at the time, you know, if you want to get closer with your father, you should go and ask for a job. He respects hardworking people, and that's what you should do. And I said, well, you wouldn't hire me, and I don't even know anything about photography. And he said, well, that won't matter. You know, he respects hardworking. Write him a letter, and if you actually write him a letter, he'll respect it and he'll hire you. That's what happened. I mean, his mother had her own retail business, so he had been taking photos from my grandmother. She came here in 1942 from Vienna and opened a retail store on Walcott Street. And they came here with nothing, and they were importing fashion, her and my grandfather on my dad's side, from Vienna, and it was called Vienna Modes. And she was big into all this sort of stuff, and Dad, from a young age, was photographing her fashion parade. So she was an amazing retailer. She only had the one store in Walcott Street, but he learned a lot about retail from her. And she had logos, she had shopping bags. There was times where we didn't even have shopping bags 30 years after she closed. And I found them, I was like, oh my gosh, she was like the master retailer long before us. And family business. She had my grandfather doing all the books at home at night, and he was an electrician during the day. And that was the family business how it began. And then Dad photographing all the fashion parades. So they grew up in family business where everyone had to take a role, basically. And then that's Dad on the tools. So he actually loved photography from like 11 years old. He loved technology. He even was famous for saying that he wired up his father's knife and fork and electrocuted him when he was like 10 years old. He just loved tech stuff. And the photography was, you know, huge in those days. He was born in 44, so at like 1955, and photography was really starting to get out there a lot more. It was mainly Leica, the German brand, from the mid-20s till about the mid-50s. Then all these other brands started popping up big, like Nikon and Canon, and a lot of the Japanese manufacturers copying the German manufacturer of Leica. So Dad was taking photos and into it a lot, but he didn't actually do like a photography. There was no photography pathway or degree or anything like that. So He couldn't become an electrician like his father because he was colourblind, which is interesting, only a camera store, but in those days everything was black and white. And he did a fitter and turner apprenticeship at like an early version of TAFE in those days. So you'll hear me mention TAFE a lot because it's been a huge influence in our life. It's in my brother and I, my father, and my daughter as well who's done it. And mum went down the uni path and did her bachelor at UWA, but with dad it was fitter and turner tool making machinist, and that took 7 years his apprenticeship in those days. And he was still he saw his mother having a retail shop business and making money and trying to pay his way. So he was photographing, you can imagine, this is all like the days of film obviously, going into nightclubs, taking photos. He wasn't a drinker, he was a big smoker. He smoked cigarettes, pipes and cigars all the time for most of our life. And a big eater as well, so he loved food and smoking and photography and business. And not necessarily a healthy mix, but and I'll come back to that about health and stuff in a sec. So he was going into these nightclubs, taking photos and then saying to people, you know, do you want to buy the shot afterwards? You know, you've got your girl on your arm and so on. And he would go out to a van with his friend and actually process the film. This is like unheard of, isn't it? And then even leave a card and say, you know, if you want to buy the photo. You see them going around with flowers and roses. Dad was doing this with photography in the 50s, in the late 50s, early 60s. And then he would, you know, cameras would break down, he would repair them because he had this fitter and turner background, and he was quite good at repairing them. He would go to a repair centre in Perth. That was expensive for him as a young person, so he would teach himself to repair cameras. Most photographers, and you see it if you've got a like-minded love of photography or anything like that in content creation, you mix with like-minded people. And so most of his mates were photographers. Their cameras would break, but they didn't have a technical background. He would repair cameras. Before you knew it, Mum will tell you, the whole house was strewn with broken cameras that he was repairing. And after 3 years, from like 67, 68, and 71, he opened a shop. And that was our first store. And that's Ango Street, 1971. It's a hairdressing salon now. My daughter's becoming a hairdresser. You can take her over one day. Right next door to the Milk Cafe. But we were there from 71 to 89. And I remember going there as a kid. I'm born in 76. And, you know, just running around. It was this tiny little shop. Like people, these two guys, the story goes, were customers. They couldn't get in because there were so many people in the store. It was small. They had to wait out the front to see Dad. That was the shop. So, yeah. Literally, like, Dad would be behind that counter. It was just, that was the shop. It was tiny. There was a little storeroom out the back. He was a machine, my father. Like, years ago, right beyond that door in the middle, he had left his bag with all of his bookkeeping notes and everything, the day's trade, and he got broken into, and someone stole a lot of gear. This was in the mid to late 70s, and took his bag with all of his notes and everything, and he had to write down by scratch, like who owed him what money, because he would help pro photographers, he was selling to the police, to all kinds of people, and he had his, you know, sheet of, like, his ledger of who owed what money. So he had to remember all that and write it down, but he was amazing that way. And then, I meant to turn that, sorry. You know, learning from the ground up. So it's just a photo of my brother and I from 2011 in the store, just showing you sort of how far we've come. But a lot of that came to on-the-job learning. So I did my, long story short, from high school, I had no idea what I wanted to do. I didn't not love photography. Dad had given me a camera when I was about 11, same years old. I used it a bit, I wasn't in love with it. From working there every Saturday from 14, I did fall in love with, like, seeing trade, seeing how people deal with each other, how Dad would talk to people, how people would wait to see him just for the level of customer service he would give, how he would get the other staff excited about that. And then I was, you know, so from 14 I had worked there every Saturday. I would miss out going to the movies with mates. They would say to me, oh, you know, what are you doing tomorrow? And I was like, no, I'm working at the shop. And it was only 10 till 1, it wasn't a hard shift, but, you know, you'd hang around with the old guys who were in their, like, 60s and 70s and just learn stuff, you know, and hear crazy old stories, you know. Like, you know, you get memes go around on your phone. These guys used to send faxes of dirty jokes to each other, you know. And it was fun. I learned a lot. And then after school, I thought I'll go to uni and do business. I didn't get in, because I've been mucking around a lot during school. And I thought, well, I'll do it through the TAFE pathway, and I didn't get into Diploma of Business Management either. I missed out by one person. And then my best mate at the time said he's going to do a computing course. Everyone was into computers, so we went to do that. On the day I went to apply, I think it was here, it was across the road. They called and said, oh, the person in front of you has pulled out. So if you want the Diploma of Business Management, go for it. So I thought, great, went for that, did that, and then that got me credits, got into uni, got halfway through first semester, got glandular fever, been out nightclubbing too much, and was in bed for like 3 months. So then I said to Dad, look, you know, and I hadn't been doing my shifts on Saturdays either, so I said, look, what about I go overseas for 6 months, learn a bit about the world and come back and then do uni? And he goes, mate, you'll never go back to uni if you do. You've got to finish. I was like, no, I'll be fine. And you know, as a young person, you know more than your parents. We just talked about this. And I came back and said to Dad, look, you know, can I just go into the family business? He said, look, you really still, I was 19, don't know, I was about to turn 20, don't know anything about photography. You know, if you want to do the course at night and literally start from the bottom, and I'll put a manager between us or I'll kill you. So, and he was quite a tough guy. He was 20 years older than me, so I was 19, 20. This Italian guy, Dominic, he was such a legend. He was with us for 10 years, and then he left for 15, and then I asked him to come back and help. He did another 10 years. So he trained me up and mentored me a lot. And my father was a mentor, but very, very tough. Dom was tough as well, but not like that. And he would be the go-between between us. So I literally was, you know, we had ashtrays on every counter. So it was slightly bigger than that shop, a lot bigger actually, when we moved to Fitzgerald Street, which is pretty much where I started. And I had to empty ashtrays, clean toilets, you know, price film with pricing gun and all that stuff, and just literally, there was no quarter for being the boss's son or anything. Everything I got shouted at a lot, because we only opened at 10 a.m. and I'd be out partying all night and get home at 3 or 4 and then get to work 5-10 minutes late, and Dominic would just scream at me. But, man, I don't care if you are the boss's son, I'll sack you myself. Like, you've got to get your head in the game. This is your father's business, so get your head in the game. And I did, and I worked harder and went up into sales. Doing photography at night taught me a fortune. I mean, Shireen's in the room, she knows Mark Dickinson was a lecturer who actually worked for us as well. So he was a lecturer here at TAFE. He taught me a lot. Mark England was around those days. And I learned all the basics of photography that Dom and Dad would talk about in shorthand. They'd be like, oh, you just got to change this lens by a quarter of a stop, and if you aren't doing sports photography, tell them they'll get a better result and they'll be able to freeze the action if they change it by like a quarter of a stop. I said, man, I don't have a clue what you just said. And he said, well, ask your TAFE lecturers, they'll tell you. And so we would finish at 6 p.m. at Fitzgerald Street in North Perth. I'd have to run to TAFE, which started at 6 p.m. And then we would have a dark room upstairs at work. I would do my assignments at work. And everyone's like, oh, you're so lucky because you can just do your assignments at work. But I was slack. I would leave it to the last minute and be doing printing at 3, 4 in the morning and stuff like that. But I did learn a fortune from both lots of TAFE, Diploma in Business Management and photography. And we sponsor the students a lot. My brother did a different pathway. He became a camera technician and repairer. Same thing, finished school, didn't know what he wanted to do, and he repeated year 12, got into uni, dropped out, and then Dad said, you need something. So he was actually driving my father around. He had a first heart attack at 50, he was very unwell, and he was like an old gangster. He would just get my brother to drive him around the city, meeting photographers or picking up money or whatever it was, and he would meet customers in the store who didn't even know who he was by that stage because he'd been off the floor a lot, and say, oh, where are you off to? They're like, who are you? He said, well, I own the business, can you give me a lift somewhere? He was a real character, And, you know, from there, Howard did electronics. It wasn't electrical, it was more electronics, like circuit board stuff. He could repair cameras, pull them apart. He learned from Dad and he learned from TAFE. So without TAFE, and there was no camera technician course, he had to do like 3 or 4 different electronics TAFE certificates to learn what he learned. And so that's where TAFE was key for us. Years later, so we actually started, you know, this little family business from Perth started exhibiting at trade shows on the East Coast. So that was one of our first in 2012. This guy is from America, so how did I wanted to grow the business? Like in the mid-90s when I joined Dad, we were at Fitzgerald Street. The property at Anglo Street we were renting, Fitzgerald Street he bought it and he overextended himself and we always seemed to owe money. And then there was recession and I just thought, look, it can't be this hard. No, that's right. And then we moved to Sterling Street in '96. So I had been working at Fitzgerald, we moved to Sterling where we are now, big, huge building, huge fit out cost, and we were going to sell Fitzgerald Street. The first offer Dad had on it, he said no to. 2 years later, we sold to the same guy for the same price. It was just such a tough time. We were paying for both buildings, paying electricity on both buildings. I remember at one point we turned the electricity off because we were trying to pay bills. Dad was sick constantly, in and out of different heart attacks, in and out of hospital. I'm in my early 20s and I'm fielding phone calls saying, is your old man going to pay the bill? It was really tough. And we had this huge showroom full of stock, but just there wasn't people coming in buying stuff. So it was really, really tough. And then I had, this is jumping ahead from so we moved into that building in '96, and then Dominic left in 2000. So sorry if I jump around a bit because it's, it's a big journey when you're talking about. For me, I've been there, 30 years roughly. So, my gosh, it doesn't feel that way, but it does and it doesn't. So from '96 to 2000, I'm working under Dominic, I'm learning a fortune. Then in 2000, he says, right, I'm leaving. One day you're going to take over, and I said, look, I'm not ready. And he goes, well, you have to be ready because I'm leaving. And he went off and owned a small film photo lab and sold a few cameras, and we kept a tight relationship. And then still we were going through tough times, and a cousin of my mum actually, who had a huge business, came in to buy a camera and said, how's it going? And I said, good. I said, it's tough. I said, do you reckon we could go for a coffee and you could teach me a bit about how you grew the business? Like, he took over from his father, who was 30 years older than me, and he had this thriving business. He'd grown from one branch to 12 or something. He's in a different business, but he goes, yeah, sure. So in business you learn. He was in a bit of retail, a lot of wholesale and industrial. And so he said, look, if you want, we went for coffee, and he said, look, if you want, I can meet your brother and you once a week. So just by asking, he didn't charge us. So we basically had a business coach non-stop for 10 years. Every Thursday night, he would sit with us and teach us everything about it. He said, look, do you have a sales forecast? Do you have a budget? And I'm like, no. He said, well, how do you know how much stock to buy? And I said, well, we just sort of guess and talk to reps and talk to customers, and we just make an educated guess. And he goes, look, that's not going to work. You'll never grow a business if you're not deeply invested in your data. Luckily, my brother is like a spreadsheet king. I'm more, loud. Like, he wouldn't even do big talks like this. He does now, but in the early days he wouldn't. So we grew a lot. We would write letters to suppliers. When we were told we weren't allowed to stock stuff, we had no Canon. Dad was a big personality. He had a fight with Canon. And from '91 to '06, we had no Canon. And Nikon was huge, but then Canon overtook them and we didn't have access to it. So we had this huge camera store with Nikon and all these other brands, like a Hasselblad, but no Canon. And after 15 years, so when I joined in '96 and around after Dominic left in '01, I started calling Canon and writing letters and sending emails. Please, can we stop it? Can we have an account? Oh no. Some of us here remember your father was a bit intense and he had an argument. I can't remember what the argument was about. We kicked him out of the store. So my brother and I said to Dad, look, we need Canon back. If we don't have Canon, and all these pro photographers are asking for it, and we've been buying it off Dominic. Like, he had this little store in Wembley, barely with a Canon account, and we were buying pro gear off him. And there was all these different levels of pro discount. So finally got a Canon account in '06, and then that helped us really grow a lot. And then we found out that we're on this 6.3% discount, and the stores over east, Dad had relationships with all of them, because when he was younger, he had been to a lot of the trade shows and learned and made relationships. And you'll see it in here, we talk about relationships a lot. This guy, him and his two brothers own a huge business in the US. They helped us a fortune with importing and making money on products from the US for a while. We had a wholesale division. So, coming back to, lost it for a second, sorry. We flew over to Sydney, saw the biggest camera store owner, and who was friends with Dad, and that's how we got the meeting. And we said, look, what's your discount with Canon? And he goes, well, we're on, we're on 6.3%, they were on about 9 or 10%. So if you think about it, as numbers, it's not a lot, but it's 40 or 50% more. You're getting 6% of 100 grand versus 10%, it's huge. And those are the sort of numbers we were doing in those days. So we said, look, can you write a letter to Kate and tell them we're two young guys, we're working hard, we're going to grow the brand, and you believe in us. And he goes, look, I can't, it's not going to work. But he said, what you can do is you can join a buying group. So he said, I've got my own store, it's called Photo Reasel, but he said it's underneath it, in brackets, it was Photo Reasel Camera House. So I said, look, if you're suggesting me join that, I said, that won't work. I said, especially not while Dad's alive. And you know, he grew this business from nothing, so we're not changing our name. And he goes, you don't have to, you can join as an alliance member, it's a new thing. There's another family-owned business in Sydney, had 7 stores. They were even struggling with buying power. They just joined us, and they've kept their logo. And the owner of that store had taken over his father's business and had his son just start. So we joined, we increased our discount with Canon a lot, and discounts on all of our other brands as well. So we started going to they had meetings every 6 months, these guys. And this was expensive for us. We had to fly over east once a year, and every second year they would do a meeting overseas. But you meet entrepreneurs, we met family businesses that had 2 stores or 3 stores or 7 stores. And they said to my brother and I, said, oh, you guys are dynamic. You're out there, you're writing letters, we were attending local trade shows in Australia at that time. You could easily have a second store. And we're like, no, there's no way. And Dad's always told us, you need a Frank, that's our last name, a Frank on the premises. And there was this huge business in Melbourne called Michael's. They were like 4th generation family business. They had brothers up and downstairs. They didn't have they did have multiple sites for a bit and then closed them down, but they had then they went to a multi-site building and different brothers would run different divisions. I had said to Jeff, our business coach, I said, you grew a business on your own, so you must have invested in staff and management and learning. He said, well, I did. You don't always have enough siblings to run your business. You have to trust in your staff. I'm probably guilty of putting the customer first and the staff second, and only recently I've learned it's very equal. You have to get that balance right. I mean, one staff member said to me, you know, you treat the customers better than you treat us. And I said, well, yeah, they're paying our wage. And when Dad started, we didn't have any staff. We just had customers. And I spoke to a couple of guys that I know now, but business coach again, I didn't have one for a while. And he said, so you have to understand, it's 50-50. The customer's coming in spending money, but they're not always going to see you or your brother. And if you don't have the staff trust you and be at that level where they can serve, you'll never grow your business. So that just shows you. And then, so we had this amazing management team. We started having management team meetings. We had 3 staffers around 2010 that would run the business, and Howard and I were flying all over the world to trade shows, learning, and then we ended up exhibiting in Australia. We never exhibited overseas, but we were bringing in products from overseas. So Hoodman, this US guy, we were selling like waterproof phone cases before they were even really a thing. Upgrade your mobile photos and videos. This was like a handheld, like an early version of a vlogging, like a DJI Osmo. Anyone knows that camera? We were importing tripods from Germany, and it helped us grow a lot. And we built our email database off that a lot, so that we were selling all over Australia, just by putting out flyers saying join our database. So that was exhibiting in 2012. So we did a bunch of trade shows, and then in 2016 we opened the second store, and it was a big deal. And Dominic had come back to work for us about a year or 2 before we opened in August 16, and just from when Dom left in 2000 to about 2015, and our business coach said that we do need to elevate your style, elevate your management style. Not always, he said, you're too deep working in the business, you're never going to grow first sales on the sales floor every day. So he said, you've got to build up a management team. And I called Dom and I said, look, would you come back? And he came back. He just sold his business. And after a year, he said, look, I'm getting frustrated. I didn't want to manage people. I just wanted to be selling cameras again because I love it. And he said, what about I go and run the new store? So he did, and that was our fit out. My brother and I very proud, like our second store. And we had a write-up in Business News, and we won the Family Business of the Year award in 2016 from Business News. And that was a big deal for us. But it said working the floor service as a habit, because so I had years of not being on the floor, dealing with a mix of stuff, with family health and mental health and this and that. And we had grown the business enough that I could take a step back. I started like leaving, from 14 to 40, I'm 49 now, I worked every Saturday. And from 40 to 47, I didn't work any Saturdays. I just wanted to see the kids dance and sports and martial arts and all that stuff, which was awesome. I thought, well, that's what Dad built, so, you know, he never got to do that stuff with us, and my brother and I can. My brother was footy coaching and all kinds of stuff, and then I was volunteering at the school like 2-3 times a week, leaving work at like 2:30 and volunteering. But it costs you, right? Like, you know, you build a business massively, you let it run under management, and then the managers were awesome, but then right after COVID, I'll come back to COVID, our 3 key managers left, and then we were in dire straits for about 2 years, 22 and 23. So that's just one more. That was in 2010. Another part of growth was we opened a photography school, just teaching photography, called Shoot Workshops. We closed it in 2020. Again, COVID, you just couldn't have events and meetups, so we just closed it. This is in 2024, but this is a photography expo convention. This was another part of our growth. We have been to all these trade shows overseas from 2010 for 8-9 years till COVID hit. We kept going to all these trade shows and learning. We thought, no one ever brings this to Perth. What's going to be exciting for our customers? Help us grow as a business, help us sell more. We're going to bring the cameras to the people. So we said to all of our suppliers, Nikon, Canon, Sony, but we couldn't. They were all complaining when they did these trade shows in Sydney, Melbourne, it would cost them hundreds of thousands. So we said, look, just have a trestle table, put a black cloth on it, put 20, 30 lenses out and talk about your gear and be passionate and tell people they can actually buy it and they can come up to the counter and buy it. So we had like a bunch of FOS machines, our staff selling, and then all the reps from all over the country, from Nikon, Canon, Sony, Fuji, underwater guys showing the gear. Our first one, which was in 2015, we had 800 people in 8 hours. Plus we were shitting ourselves because we had to pay the Novotel like 10 grand deposit and we didn't know if anyone was going to turn up. So we thought, well, how are we going to get people to turn up to a photography convention? Even though at that stage we still had a good name, but you need a trigger, right? You need something to capture them. So we said, look, let's connect it with education. So we did these, we asked all the best photographers. We even asked the travel editor of the West, who was an amazing photographer, and everyone read his columns, everyone loved this guy. Would you be one of our guest speakers? And he said, sure. He didn't even charge us. And we did offer everyone money. We said, look, we'll pay you like $300 to give a 20-minute talk. A lot of them said, look, you guys are always so nice to us, and this is about relationships. You loan us gear when it's broken, and Shireen knows this. You know, if something happens, we'll help you. You need sponsorship money for a TAFE grad, we'll give it to you. So when we reached out to a bunch of speakers and said, please help, they all came. And then we thought, well, let's just make it really cheap. So it was like $5 for a 20-minute talk. Then we went IKEA style, and as you came out of the lecture room, out of that room, there was bollards, and you had to go into the expo room. So you had to buy stuff. You didn't have to buy stuff, but you heard these speakers talk about all this exciting gear and how they take photos all over the world and this and that, or how they're taking photos locally of, you know, sports cars. There's so many cool genres in photography. They would walk out of here and we say, oh, sorry, you can't go to the exit, you've got to go through the expo room to get to the exit. And they would just froth and they would just love stuff and end up buying stuff. So that was another part of our growth. And this year we celebrated that as 10 years doing the Photo Live Expo. And I'll come back to this in a second, but with competitors, the first year we did this, the exact same format, 3 months later, another camera store that was national decided to do one in a hotel right down the road. Hardly anyone turned up, you know. It was just, and we were really, really stressed. Oh my God, I can't believe they're copying us and it's going to be a disaster. We had one vision and one message of one camera store. They had 5 or 6 different stores and they couldn't figure out when people walked in who went where and paid for what. The customer message was confusing. So you've got to get your customer message right. And then Wanderlust. So, you know, we're smashing it, we're going to trade shows, we're opening second stores, we've got Photo Live Expo, we've got photography workshops, we're like killing it, we're everywhere. And we've managed to have some more Saturday time with our kids and this and that. Then COVID comes in, and we had a very, very tough first year, 2020. And it came good, so it was March 2020, for about 6 months it was tough, really tough. not tough like the East Coast, they went through hell, but we went through our own hell. We had to close the doors and follow lots of rules and tell staff, look, you're going to have to be on not less pay. If you're on whatever, $30 an hour, we're not reducing your wages, but we're going to reduce your hours. So if you're used to getting this many hours at $30 an hour, whatever, you're only going to get 2/3 of that, or even 1/3 of that, even with JobKeeper and help and support. Then it started to come good again, and then we had our 50-year anniversary in 21. But just prior to that, we got offered a third location, really cheap, because all these empty shops in Perth. And this real estate agent came and said, oh, would you want a third store? Or you can even move your store and we'll save your rent. And I was like, no, we don't, but what we might do is try a pop-up. You know, everyone was caravanning and camping during COVID, it was all exciting. And people were buying drones like they were going out of fashion. So I thought, what about we do a drone-only shop? And I mean, there's one in Camden, a lot of probably. But they only do air drones. We thought, let's do underwater drones, fishing drones, all kinds of cool tech. Fishing drones where they drop a bait and you control it from your phone. Super cool stuff. And then we were trying to come up with the logos at Drones by Camera Electronic or DJI by Camera Electronic. And we thought, no, this is too big. If it's a pop-up, we really want it to work. So we went to a marketing guy. He came up with Wanderlust by Camera Electronic. Wanderlust, it's a German word. We're a German family for passion for tech and travel. And you buy Camera Electronic, connected it to a family business. So it's kind of power your next adventure. E-foils, and he said, man, you got to think bigger than just drones. So we were selling electric surfboards, underwater drones, waterproof cameras, speakers, headphones, e-scooters, it was all the craze. It went well for about 1.5 years, and then it dived, right? So sales just dived from March 22. Right in the middle of Wanderlust, we had the 50-year anniversary. So that's why that photo's there. So it was November 2020 open Wanderlust. June 21 we had the 50-year. March 22, the borders open, no one's buying any of the stuff anymore. And then on top of that, e-scooters, everyone was crashing onto each other. It was like a disaster. You know, it got banned in Sydney, no one wore helmets, it was just a disaster. So we couldn't sell e-scooters. We were selling electric dirt bikes, they're still going pretty well. Electric surfboards were the craze, but they were $18,000 each. We sold a bunch. We sold in the first year, I think we sold like 20. We had no idea we would sell an electric surfboard ever. We even had to get a motor vehicle dealer's license to sell the electric dirt bikes. And we only sold them because the e-scooter guy called and said, look, do you want to try selling electric dirt bikes? I was like, yeah, we'll try anything. Because it did connect to photography and videography. Guys would put Insta360s and GoPros on their helmets, so it did connect. But it did cause us a massive amount of headaches. We had old school photographers going, guys, what are you doing? You know, you're a camera store, 50 years, you just celebrated 50 years and you've got push bikes in the store. You know, it doesn't make sense. And so he gave a mixed message. So you do have to be careful about owning your message. And we had to think about what to do and lean into our photography and our family business and really push the logo harder than ever before, the family business. And we kept telling all the staff and all the customers, you've got to tell them, we're a family business, we're not a big chain. And that worked well because some people didn't even know who Howard and I were. We had spent that much time off the floor. They're like, well, do those two old guys, you know, like we had these big grey beards, you know, do they even own the business? Aren't they getting out? Like that was the message we were subconsciously setting to the market. And so then we got back into it big time. I started working the floor again on Saturdays and I loved it. And customers I hadn't seen for 10 years would come and hug me and say, oh, it's so good to see you again. We thought you were out. You know, we thought you had sold or something. I was like, no, we're here. But this is the thing, like, trust your gut and your data. With Wanderlust, we shrank back a lot of the products. We should have left it as a pop-up for a year, but you learn, right? And you've got to try stuff, and you've got to fail, and then you've got to pick yourself up and try again. We put in a photo lab. We had all these customers saying, so this is totally retro to e-scooters and electric surfboards. Young people like coming in with film going, will you process film? I've just bought this off eBay, can you show me how to get the film in the camera? All this sort of, and there's YouTube videos, but it's not the same as talking to someone. And then you speak to our staff, and Shireen knows a lot. Like we will call her and say, you know, who's, thank you for being in the room. You know, who's one of the most awesome graduates that we can employ and who loves photography? Because that's our message. It's on our logo. You'll see it later. We love photography, that is our real message. Not selling electric scooters. It was a cool, fun thing for a while, and during COVID it actually was a smart move because camera sales, people weren't buying cameras, they weren't travelling, So we did need it, and it served us well. But you have to know when to get in and when to get out. Timing is key in business. And if you get it, like when we opened Murray Street, we signed the lease, had the design done, opened the store within 8 weeks. It was unheard of. But then we won last night, we dragged it out, we never should have done. So you live and learn. And now we've got this huge photo lab there. There's one main girl running it who is working at another store. She loves film, loves cameras, loves processing, and that's going really well now, you know, so it's just, you live and learn. But there you go, that's the end, so not the end, it's the beginning of the end of the next 54 years, but yeah, so we've updated the logo from 50 years on the t-shirt to 54, and that's my dad, and I'm Saul Frank, and thanks for listening. Couple of free lens spots, they're $8, they're good for your glasses, good for camera lenses, good for the back screen. That's a freebie on us, and there's a business card with mobile email if you want to hit me up.
Excellent. One more time, Saul. Excellent. Very interesting history, not just your business, but TAFE as well.
Yeah.
I appreciate it. So that is the end of our presentations today, but not the end of the event. We do have Pilates at the back end of the library right now, so feel free to head that way. But before we wrap up, I do just want to give one last thank to our four presenters, Simon, Nadia, Scott and Saul. Thank you. I do want to thank a number of people who made this event happen. So we've got our AV crew at the back, thank you so much. Our Auslan students, we've got our volunteers at the front desk, and our client, Keith. Thank you very much. And one last massive thank you to our Future 5 crew, our Diploma of Event Management students who made this happen. We've got a few in here at the moment. Chuck your hands up. Yes. So these literally five students made this whole thing happen, from planning, conceptualization to today. Showtime, okay? A huge mammoth effort that they were able to pull off. It's in their name, they are the future of the events industry, so do not be surprised if later, next year, in the next few years, you go to an event and you go, that was the best experience of my life, and one of these crew were behind the scenes making it happen, okay? So, round of applause for our Future 5 crew. Thank you so much for coming today. I encourage you, hit Pilates. I'll be down there, back end of the library, everyone. Thank you so much for attending. Cheers.
Thank you, Daniel.
Thanks.